Hey, so we're back. It's maybe a little late in the week, but we've had a little bit to do, and we kind of were also waiting to see just how fucked up everything was going to get in the various
Boy,
flooded
howdy.
regions of the U.S. and Afghanistan. Well, bad news. It got worse.
Yeah.
It all got worse. So I've got this. I got this one. I've been laying on this for a little while, much like an Afghan warlord. We've got the new version of ISIS, ISIS-K. Uh, it would appear that Joe Biden he called in a hit strike on 9 members of ISIS-K. We found out what the K is short for, as a matter of fact, ISIS-Kids. So he was able to blow those kids to smithereens.
All
So
seven of them, right?
was it 7 or not? Oh yeah. It was like 9 people, 7 of which were kids, or maybe 10 people.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was like 9 or 10 civilians, 7 kids,
Yeah. So basically,
and
what
I had no
happened
idea
if
if there was even a terrorist involved.
if somehow you are unaware of the situation in Afghanistan, um, it went bad. It went super duper bad. It went as bad as the thing can possibly go. And well, we had some guys that thought they'd put on some vests that have some RDX or something on them and press some buttons, and they did. And so we lost like 13 of ours, like 50 civilians, 150 some were injured, and then we were told this was the job of ISIS-K, or my name isn't Joe Skin Suit Biden.
Yeah. How
And
how is it that we couldn't
yeah,
possibly
yeah, we didn't
like?
know that this shit was coming. We'll get to that, by the way, and the phone call with Ghani.
Well, we found ISIS K. We found the ISIS K guy like the next fucking day and blew him up
Oh yeah, that.
along with
I
a
mean,
bunch of
actually, I
civilians.
believe about that evening. I don't think it was a full day's time before they had a quote unquote certified target. Turns out the certified target was just some rando and his fucking family. Oh wait, no, that's wrong. Actually, it turns out that it was somebody that had worked with us in the past and shown themselves to be a viable asset. So,
So, what exactly was the incriminating evidence they had on Hillary Clinton?
exactly. Well, it might not have been that. I mean, we have to be honest.
No,
They might have had
I
some dealings with Hunter.
I was extraordinarily pissed off about our extraction out of Afghanistan earlier this week. I didn't have any fucking words for it.
Well,
Um,
Joe
and then
says
the
it
words I
was
did find,
a smashing
I found one
success.
word. I found one word for it: treason.
Hmm.
He
Yeah.
fucking left our people behind. Not only that, he had every fucking choice to not do that on the way. He was offered Kabul to get our people out.
Yeah, that's actually come
He
out
told
since. And not just
he
to add a
he
little
didn't.
bit to that, it would. I don't have a full story
It might have kept
because
us
a
in there a
lot of
little
this
longer,
has
but
kind of
like,
been buried. But the long and short of that is the Taliban offered to just let America run Kabul and do
yeah,
our thing. There
while
wasn't
they're
really a
getting out,
timeline on
while
it.
they were negotiating,
Yeah.
we could have
So
mediated the negotiations.
we could have had Kabul. We could have not left Bagram in the middle of the fucking night with the gates unlocked and
Yeah,
all the
they
equipment still there.
all the 5,000 plus terrorists we had locked up there, they all got released. All of them. They got set free. You can guess that a few of them might have been shot on sight by the people who were letting them out. Because don't forget that the Taliban really don't like ISIS. That bad blood. Taliban are okay with Al Qaeda as long as they're paying them, but they hate ISIS because different factions and so on.
Yeah, funny
But
how
like they
fundamentalism
just let
works.
them out. They couldn't keep them in. Like they got let out. All that shit, where people talk about the negotiations with Taliban and Trump and so on. Abandoning Bagram was at least as bad, except we didn't get shit for it in return.
Well, I mean, we did. We got shit on for it in
Well, I
return.
guess we got an explosion in a shit canal. Yeah, okay.
I mean,
By the
we
way, if
got.
you didn't know that, that's what that was. That was the sewage canal that all the people from all the Afghanis with their papers being waved in the air, saying, "Hey, I can get the fuck out of here. Why don't you let me in?" They're crossing a goddamn sewage canal on the far side of the base that airport rather, trying to get in. These motherfuckers were turning away Americans with stamped passports, ready to go,
and it's turning
ready
out,
to leave.
as a matter of fact, amongst the ones that were allowed through, something like 80+% are not our people. They're just rando fucking Afghans.
120,000 people got evacuated. 6,000 Americans in that 120,000.
And
why the fuck weren't all the Americans at the front of the line?
And I've heard as much. I've heard 40,000. I've heard as much as 80,000 Americans on the ground in Afghanistan at the start of the evacuation, and I've only heard about a couple thousand evacuated.
So we know just shy of 6,000, like a handful shy of 6,000 Americans made it out in the 120,000 that they're quoting for the airlift.
Of the many tens of thousands which are suspected to have still been on the ground.
They say the official bullshit count, because they don't have an exact number, because why the fuck would you have that? The official count is between 1 and 200. Low 100.
Still remaining.
Range.
Well, actually, we should clarify that.
That we
less
abandoned.
than 100
that remained, that we fucking abandoned.
Well, no, let's clarify here. Less than 100 that specifically we abandoned because there are an untold, unknown number of individuals that, quote unquote, do not want to leave.
Now, the number I heard before extraction began, before evac, was something on the order of like 14,000 Americans. So it could easily be higher than that, fine. But like, that's the number that I heard being kicked around. Was around 10 to 14,000.
Well, yeah, and I mean, if we take a look at things, some of our military assets and all of our intelligence assets were out of there in the last 6 to 8 weeks.
And it also could have easily been that it was just that many in Kabul and not like in the rest of the country. But that's what I was hearing. In Afghanistan, we had 10 to 14,000 Americans remaining that we need to get out. And I said, okay, why aren't we who's prioritizing Americans to get out first? First come, first serve at the gate. But if you're an American between two people at two different lines, you're the one first on the plane. Simple shit, Not asking for much there.
Yeah.
If there's the extra seat and someone wants to get on, the Americans have the American queue. We pull one out of there first.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for every American in the city to get out before you have at the front of the Afghan line to get out. But, if there's Americans waiting there, ready to go, they should be the ones on the plane first.
I
think that's fair.
Simple like that would be something simple.
And I know there are people out there who think that the more extreme position is the right one to go, where every American should have gone before they let a single Afghan out. I think that's asking a little too much. If they're there and they're ready to go, they're there and they're ready to go, take them. But into the rescue efforts, they had to go out. They fucking, we're not going to have Saigon, and here we go. We have to fucking airlift people into the airport from the tops of buildings.
Well, I mean, if we're being entirely honest, this makes Saigon look like a well-run, well-rehearsed, well-planned, graceful exit. This is the largest shit show in U.S. military history.
Here's the thing.
I'm willing to say that.
People who went over there and didn't come back the same.
Yeah,
people who
I do
went
too.
over there and came back and then died after they got back. And I'm wondering what exactly the fuck my friends died for. What exactly did they go over there and get maimed for? We got rid of Al Qaeda by 2010. We didn't get the fuck out of there in 10 years. What the fuck were we doing over there? Why did we lose 13 more before we left?
Well, I mean, somebody's got to guard those poppies.
And then we have this asshole look at his fucking watch 13 times as 13 bodies come off after that plane.
Yeah, that's something that I don't think a lot of people have really gotten into. There's the one clip, but the thing about it is, there isn't just the one clip. Every single one of them that they unloaded, every time he checked his watch, every single time. Not many people are reporting on this, and the video is only of the one. Literally every single one. He checked his watch as
This
though he had
pisses
some
me off.
important head to sniff. Instead,
This pisses me off. I've got friends with at least 3 bands in their arm who served over there. That's 3 tours. Like, it's what the fuck? Like, who do they think they're going to call in the next time there's an emergency? We got the old fat fucks out there, as they'll refer to themselves. We got fucking operators who are ex-military extracting Americans today because these assholes couldn't get their shit in gear and get them out as they were paid to do ahead of time. Like, which Millie was the guy who was in charge of the training and shit, right? Wasn't he the guy who said that, yeah, they're ready to go, and then it fucking failed?
well,
Why is he still a general?
well, Millie had, priorities. He had that white rage he had to concern himself
Why the fuck
with.
aren't these people being told to step down? He's calling it a success. Fuck this guy. You know what a success was? World War II. We had parades when they came back. You know what an unmitigated disaster was? Vietnam. They were scorned when they came back, the soldiers. And then worse, this time there's just fucking apathy.
Yeah, a whole bunch of nothing.
We got an asshole looking at his watch, setting the tone for the country. And then he starts talking about his fucking dead son, who died of cancer in a hospital in America. Not from a fucking bomb on the other side of the planet.
And, it could be argued that his son didn't want to fight the cancer because, really, if that's your dad and you know that all he's done is out there and just still happening, would you really want to still live in this world? I don't know if I would.
It's infuriating on a level I can't express in words properly. It's fucking infuriating. Like, the thing is, people what they don't realize is there are people who serve oftentimes come from families where other people have served. They're multi-generational, many of them.
Oh yeah, no, you have generations of warriors.
The ones who are first generational typically plan on telling their kids that it's an option to go in and serve like their parents. They are through. A lot of these people are just done.
Yeah, military families. There's a lot of military families that are they're not done having kids, but they're done serving.
Like, they don't know what the fuck it is that they would send their kids off to serve. Like, what is it? Like, if we got through this, 20 years we got through this. They say the war is over because they evac'd the fucking country. No, they lost that. And we're still in Iraq.
We're still in fucking Germany. We got a base in fucking Okinawa.
Right. If you're gonna nation build, you actually fucking do it. You don't, or you have people there who want to do it. This was a fucking disaster. It was preventable over a 10-year period. Like, as a lame duck, a president could have pulled out like this and landed a disaster on their political opponent. And the party would have probably thought it was funny, and it would have run better than this. That's the thing that's disgusting about it, is it would have run better than this.
Well, the thing about this whole thing...
The deal that was made with the Taliban had a big stick behind it. And in fact, Joe fucking had every opportunity to rewrite it to his satisfaction and refused to. He allowed the Taliban to violate their side of the agreement with no repercussions. Of course they're going to take over the whole goddamn country in a month. And let alone the fact that they were able to take all the capitals in fucking it was less than a week. They took over the country effectively in less than a week. That got stretched out to 11 days by Milley when he was admitting it. Not one of these fucking generals should be allowed to stay in their position.
Oh, at a bare minimum.
That LT
at a bare minimum.
Basically got his ass kicked out. That got a forced retirement. That LT, he's absolutely right. Accountability
Scheller,
is
I think it is.
Here. Yeah, Scheller or something like that.
Yeah, that guy. He's just a quick little update. There was a little bit of talk about that. Apparently, he is going to be investigated by military intelligence just to make sure that he is psychologically sound.
That's typical. So this is typical of people exiting the military on bad blood. He's gonna get hounded, and the worst thing is when these assholes go after you, they do it in such a way that is made to look insane. It's made to make you look nuts, and you're not. Like, this is one of those times where they really are out to fucking get you. And it's disgusting. I know people that have had this shit done to them. It's disgusting.
Yeah, yeah,
You
absolutely.
don't bring this shit up because you don't want to rock that boat too hard, but like it fucking happens, and it's disgusting every time.
Oh yeah, this
These are
dude's
the
gonna
worst.
he's gonna get
These are the kind
hounded.
of people that these are the kind of people that go to sleep with a smile on their face after blowing children up on the other side of the country, on the other side of the world rather. That will do this kind of
Yeah, don't get
shit
ahead
to
of
people
yourself.
after they get out.
We're not there yet. We're not there yet.
Like, but this is what happens to people when they leave on bad blood. They will get, they'll do the investigation. It's funny that they're even making that's even public word at this point for some people. The guy, all I gotta say for that guy is I hope he knows his close friends, he confides in them, because that's gotten other people I know through this kind of shit. It's pretty heavy. You can't, like, you'll come home to your door being open, and nothing will be touched inside.
Yeah, I believe that. Well, I mean, just look at what they
And
did.
then it's they'll it's nutty stuff. Like, there's a lot of other details to go into on that kind of shit. Like, it's vicious on a level you don't expect, especially for our fucking veterans. It's disgusting what they will do.
Well, well, they'll do the kind of stuff that we're told is conspiracy theories and doesn't exist. You know, like gang stalking. Gang stalking doesn't exist, right? There's no such thing as Kiwi farms.
Right.
I mean, there's no such thing as Chris Chan that was literally gang stalked. I mean, by the members of Kiwi Farms. I mean, that's not a thing, right? Not that they built this monster into something that would be their source of joy and amusement. And that's just some fucking randos online. That's not even glowies. So what can glowies do? Well, a lot more. A lot more. And they've got the blessing of people that want to see you suffer and have power.
Oh,
So
so when it comes to a serviceman like that coming out, that's not going to be the CIA or the FBI or any of those alphabets on you. That's the fucking military intelligence arm of the U.S. Military,
well, true. I just mean in this particular
and
case
they get to
because of the
be
ties that it might actually be.
they have all kinds of extrajudicial latitudes that that are not applicable in three-letter agencies that have paperwork.
Well, those last three words you said there have a lot to do with that as well. That have paperwork. I
Yeah.
mean, we got all sorts of black ops and black sites. So there's
The
that.
thing is, though, if those will have paperwork of some variety. What I'm saying here is that if you have an operator who is told to do something not so kind, oftentimes they are told and that's it. The conversation otherwise never happens. There's no budget allocation. There's no bump in pay or a bonus or any of that kind of shit. There's no misnamed things on a form somewhere. It doesn't happen because it was just a conversation.
Well, I find myself
No
wondering if there's
electronics
not a lot
for
of those kind of
miles.
conversations going on these days. Because there's a lot
Never
of really,
stops. Never gone
really
away.
upset people. But anywho, speaking of
Yeah, remember,
conversations,
30% of the country is fucking terrorists now, right?
bare minimum 30%.
Unreal.
So, on related notes, let's rewind just a little bit to just a few months ago. It appears that well, Ashraf Ghani made a phone call. Ashraf Ghani being not
Oh
Hamid
yeah,
Karzai, who was not the president at the time. If you're Anthony Blinken, it was again not Hamid Karzai. It was Ashraf Ghani. He was the president. So anyway, he was on the phone.
Lincoln's a fucking moron.
Oh yes. So
That guy is the pinnacle of diversity hire. He checks all the wrong boxes and he still got it.
well, I mean, if you're going to hire a white guy, you've got to make sure he's absolutely the worst for the job, right?
What I'm saying is the guy's got to have a disability.
Of some variety,
And
I'm sure.
it's just a low IQ, I believe, too.
Well, that's possible. It could be possible too that he was born without a soul. You know, I mean, that would
I think it
be
was
that would
probably
be a
born without a
big.
brainstem.
That's possible too. I mean, you know, if you're a soulless entity, you're gonna be a really nice fit for the Biden administration.
Well, you can tell that he's soulless because he speaks like a fucking robot, and a robot with bad programming.
Fair, fair.
Moves like one too. Anyway, yeah, the phone call.
Yeah. So it would appear that Reuters actually has a full copy of the phone call. They have not released it, but we've gotten a bit of
Why
it.
the fuck not, huh?
Oh, they're probably just waiting for a moment because we're already seeing. I mean, Boris motherfucking Johnson is dunking on Biden. That's really something. But I mean, when you fall asleep right next to, the Israeli PM, there's
Okay, so I'll say this. He
yeah,
was not sleeping, he was twiddling his thumbs. There's the olive branch that all the Democrats are waiting for. See, he wasn't really asleep. Yeah, he wasn't sleeping. He was just twiddling his thumbs, thinking about what kind of raisin cookie he's gonna get.
and when we say raisin cookie, we mean young
What kind of
girl.
what kind of ice cream? What kind of ice cream am I gonna have when I'm done with this forced conversation?
10-year-old blonde flavor ice cream, his favorite. So anyway, on the Ganny call, he asked Biden. Well, I shouldn't say ask. I should say he begged and pleaded with Biden to please, whatever you do, just leave the contractors in place and leave the support structure.
Yeah.
Because, as many may know that'll be listening to this, and if you don't, this will maybe be an interesting tidbit of information for you. In the 20 years that we've been teaching the Afghan army to fight, the ones that can have been learning to fight using an American doctrine. That is to say, heavy air support with ground mop-up crews. It's safer, and, it's really effective.
It cleans shit up pretty quickly.
It truly does. It truly does. And you can end with a lower loss of life. It costs a little bit more in munitions, but you lose less of your human capital. So,
Yeah, the missiles cost about 10 to 100 times more than the entire magazine loadout for, say, a soldier on the ground. All the ammo that they carry in one missile, boom. Except 10 times to 100 times that cost.
very true.
That's just small ones too. It's expensive shit, but again, the loss of life is minimal.
Yeah, it's a very effective warfighting method.
And
And
the cutter missiles that we use, the Hellfires, that just kind of chop people up. Those are kind of precision instruments, and those are used very effectively.
absolutely. So these guys have been doing really well, and well, I'll just quote Joe here on this. They have a 300-some thousand strong army up against about 80,000 individuals. They had been doing pretty well. They were standing until we completely shut down Bagram Air Force
Bagram.
Base and
Yeah.
pulled out all of their support structure because they have no real support structure. Our contractors and our warfighters were there doing the logistics, giving them the intelligence they need, making everything run. We were handling a lot of the back end. And on top
The
of that,
intel
here's
part
a
is pretty critical
really
there.
interesting little point on top of that. We were handling payment processing for all Afghan army members. So when we pulled
but
out,
here's the
that fell
thing.
apart
What
too.
was Ghani really happy about for about a week while the whole thing was collapsing around him? What was he sitting there giddy about? This professor from fucking America. He was happy. He was all kinds of. He was basically going on and on about the Afghanistan version of PayPal.
Huh.
That was his big thing up until right at the end there when he was just before he had to fucking run away. He was distracted by implementing the Afghanistan PayPal, whatever the fuck it was called.
Wow.
Not paying attention to all of his capitals going away.
Yeah, never mind that. Well, again, this is. Well, he was just doing as Joe asked him, because on that same call, Joe was like, yeah, I know you want contractors and air support and everything, but I'm going to need you to just tell everybody everything's fine and that you've got this. And, well, I guess he did.
Nuts.
And so here we are. We've got a fallen state that's well on its way to becoming a theocratic dictatorship. Now, I will say I have to respect the ability of the Taliban to meme, because these guys, they have got some bants. They are throwing some fire tweets out there, and
Yeah, well, they're throwing any tweets out there.
also that, yes,
Any
yes,
tweets.
yeah.
They are
Donald Trump
allowed
is
on the
making no
platform.
tweets at all these days, but the Afghanistan Minister of Communication, whatever his name is,
So
he's out
there's
there
a
saying all sorts of
there's a
interesting
group
things.
there's a group of people that run counterterrorism on Twitter, ControlSec, and you'll very rarely see me retweet out one of their Tango lists, but largely they'll do their own thing. Their goal is basically to report as many of these terrorist fucks that are tweeting as possible, and that's one of those things. I'm like, you know what? Okay, that's fine. Sometimes you should just let the platform be, and then let authorities that are investigative authorities have a convenient, pristine evidence trail out in the open that they can follow back and find the bad guys. But that's not going to happen in the U.S. for, say, the Taliban or ISIS tweeting. Not realistically. And the back channels are all going to be used for anything critical anyway. So shutting down their propaganda arms really isn't a bad thing.
I mean, legitimately, no, not at all.
I got, like, there's free speech issues on that, sure. At the same time, like, I'm not gonna shed a fucking tear or lose any sleep over one of these clowns having to make a new Twitter account, because that's what they do. They don't go away. They just make more. So it's a way of containment on them to just kind of encroach in a little bit on the outside, and ControlSec does good on that.
Never minding that
So the fact that
the
Twitter
higher ups
is
have
now
said that no, it's fine as long as they aren't posting violent content.
right, and now the fact that Twitter is allowing them, because in their policy you cannot promote terrorism, you cannot try to radicalize people. That's been the case for a while on Twitter. They allow this shit explicitly.
Oh yeah, literal
This is known
recruitment.
because this is known because it's not just the official accounts that are allowed. It is, you have to wait for one of these terrorist accounts to truly screw up beyond just promoting terrorism to be able to get them off the platform. Like, this is one of those things that's been run into time and again now over more than a decade. Getting them off of Twitter requires them to do more than just talk about how excellent Allah is and you should kill all the infidels.
Yeah, they can't
and
just
the infidels
break
are all
the terms of
decadents in the
service.
West.
They've got to flagrantly violate them.
Yeah, it's the kind of shit that would, like, for instance, look how long it took Milo to lose his blue check. Now multiply that by like 100, and you've got some idea of the effort it takes to get rid of one of these assholes on Twitter.
Yeah.
It takes a lot. Which they're happy to provide, obviously, because they're fucking just going to make another one. They don't see it as a major inconvenience.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
And they run bots, too. This should give you an idea of, A, the level of sophistication involved, and B, the level of state help that they're receiving. That's not just from Afghanistan or Iraq or Iran or even just Pakistan. Like, they're getting funding and technological expertise and technical support from China and Russia and Pakistan and Iran.
And
just to name
speaking
the
of
first four,
China, Russia, and Iran, boy, they are going to be super happy to get those 3D scans and, be able to fully tear down the Blackhawks and, some of our main battle tanks, the Bradleys, and all that. Boy, they're going to be so happy to get access to our cutting edge tech.
So one of the things that's really made me upset about this, it's look, we knew that there's going to be a shit show getting out. Fine. We didn't scuttle anything. We handed them $85 billion worth of equipment and resources.
Well, hold on now.
And
Let me Snopes this up.
fucking cash.
Let me
And
Snopes it up here.
cash.
Hold on. I gotta slow your roll. Snopes has
You gotta
fact checked
reduce it
that
by
now.
a quarter
It
billion or
was
whatever.
not 85 billion, sir. It was 60 billion. Thank you very much.
There are pallets of cash over there.
Literal pallets
There
of
are
cash.
videos of them. There are videos of them walking up to pallets of cash, our cash, taxpayer money,
Hundreds.
cutting
Wrapped
them
in
open,
cellophane.
and then counting them out.
Stacks. And stacks.
Literal fucking pallets of this shit. It's ours. We left it. Like, I understand that some stuff is too expensive to ship back. Then this should tell you the amount of expense we put up with putting stuff over there. But here's the thing that bothers me: a helicopter, it can fucking fly, can it not?
Yeah, funny.
As in move large distances, can it not? Don't we have friendly bases in the area?
Well, I mean, they can at the very least carry one body by a rope from the hook on the bottom. We've seen the Taliban doing that.
Could these aircraft not possibly A, haul equipment, or I don't know, B, say land at a friendly airbase somewhere outside of the area where the terrorists are going to immediately get their hands on them? Because let's not forget, it doesn't matter what their PR arm is saying in American news. Fucking the Taliban are child raping terrorists.
If not one and all,
not just like the Afghan, like, we were just talking about this before I got on, not just the Afghan bachabazi tradition of fucking little boys for pleasure and for sport, but like the Taliban are so much worse that the people who participate in bachabazi normally are upset by them. This should tell you how much worse they are. And they are now in charge of Afghanistan, and people are rightfully upset that women's rights are going to take a hit.
To put it at a minimum.
But you know what I saw today, and this is a pivot point for you. You know what I saw today? I saw people today saying that the Texas law being allowed to go into effect because the SCOTUS rejected injunctive relief.
Oh, you want to talk about the cowboy caliphate?
Relief. So, because SCOTUS refused to listen to the requests for emergency injunctive relief against a Texas abortion law, there are people out there who are without a hint of any sense of self-awareness or irony, both comparing Texas to Afghanistan, saying that women are more oppressed in Texas today than in Afghanistan, and also suggesting that they do what the women did in Lysistrata, which is a play by whatever the fuck his name was, Aristophanes or whatever, a Greek play, Greek comedy, in which the women basically stopped sleeping with the men in order to get a war to end. And what's funny about that is if the women all stopped sleeping with the men, then there wouldn't be any more abortions anyway.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
But why the fuck would they realize that when they could just be upset and claim that they're going to have the power? And I also suggested to a couple of these women that if they're big on Lysistrata, they should definitely read The Assemblywoman. Fucking idiots. They don't get the idea of why it was funny for the women to stop sleeping with the men and to end the war that way. They don't get why that is funny, and they think that they can seriously do it today and make a point. Especially given the context today where it's not having kids. It's like, they're literally advocating for the only other option men get besides a condom.
Yeah.
Actually, and here, hold on a second. Where is it? I had a... Okay, well, just in your mind, imagine, for the listener, a bottle of aspirin tablets. That's the most effective abortion pill, by the way. All you have to do is pinch it between your knees when you go out tonight. And don't let that fucker drop.
Fair.
It's ridiculous. So anyway, it is an absurd comparison. The women in Afghanistan, like, just look at the way that the news reporter, she was brave, but the network looks stupid. Especially letting her stay there and do the reporting. I, you know, she's got she's got some serious brass balls. What the fuck was her name? Anyway, the night and day changed for her, where she showed up the next day in a burqa or
Oh,
the niqab and
yeah.
shit.
I can't remember her name, but I mean, kudos to actually sticking around and being an
She
honest to
she
God
she
fucking
walked
journalist.
around. She walked around. She got told to stand to the side and to shut up because she's a woman. At the one checkpoint, then soon after that, they were walking down the street with their Taliban escort, mind you. And then more Taliban came up and were threatening them with the butts of guns until the Taliban escort said, "Hey, it's okay. They have permission." Like they put on a PR campaign for us in Kabul just to assuage our media requirements until they could get the media to evac. At which point they immediately went back to doing their same old shit, beating people in the street who are trying to get out of the country. And let's not forget, we handed them a fucking list of names. We handed them our people,
Now
not just
now
citizens
to
of
be clear,
America
let
that
me
we want
pause
to
you
get
for
out.
let me pause you for a second on that,
Sure.
because there's a little bit of nuance to that. They got all of our intelligence and all of our records of all the Afghan citizens and all that, which that was out there. People are aware of that. And the people that are listening should probably be aware of this, but if this gets out to some others that are not, let me clarify there. They got things that we abandoned in our haste. But above and beyond that, this only saw a little bit of mainstream reporting, but the Biden administration gave a list of American and Afghan citizens that were meant to be let through the checkpoints after the Taliban had taken over Kabul and taken over outside security
So this,
of Hamid Karzai
I was,
International Airport
I was
in
going to
the
get to the
days of the
next
fall.
part of this. It's going to get to the next part of that, which will serve as a minor clarification on this as well as how significant that is. The Americans, so we had our checkpoints at the entrances to the airport. The Taliban had formed a perimeter around our perimeter around the airport. Our perimeter existed at the walls and fences and gates of the airport and the airfield. But the Taliban were out like a block. They had a full block of depth of space that they occupied and required people to pass through their checkpoints, had their people searching around, pointing, basically beating people if they so felt the need, etc. This is that area where people were like walking up and throwing their children over barbed wire to Americans to get them out of the country. The Taliban had their own checkpoints. We gave the Taliban the list of American citizens and Afghans to get out of the country with the expectation that they would not violate the deal they had already violated multiple times and actually pass them through to our guys. They had the ability to keep from us whoever they wished from on that list without us being able to do anything about it because we did not have a perimeter established that incorporated the people that we wanted to get out.
And
We
preliminary
allowed them to
intelligence.
control that area. We allowed them to control that area, and on top of that, they had the ability to verify who was on that list with the biometric scans that we compelled from citizens in Afghanistan when we went through their villages and we did force majeure. We basically walked in with like a water truck after we blew up their infrastructure and said, if you and your family want water, you've got to get scanned.
And so we've
So
got
the
all this
reason
data.
why they have all that data is because we came in after the infrastructure got destroyed and said, all right, we've got the goods, you've got to give us what we want. And what we wanted was for them to all submit to scanning. That is now going to be used against them in a totalitarian nightmare. Like we gave them over a decade of supplies. It's not just the fact that these things might be of some intelligence value to another country. So a lot of things that are, especially the stuff that's ETAR certified for export, is not going to be of much use from just like say reverse engineering. Although more importantly, when you do reverse engineering, it's always nice to have another device you can destructively test.
Well, they've got plenty
So
of those.
so the drones, for example, are all ETAR certified for export, but the countries that have them might not want to pay American dollar, retail for another one, but the Taliban might be willing to let go of one or two of them for less, especially if they can't operate them. So they've got ammo, they've got all the MREs in the world, they got
Vehicles
all
for
kinds.
days.
They've got gear, they've got aircraft, they've got our eye gear, so they can do not just like all the biometric stuff, but they can do heat sensing, etc. They can do infrared. So they have all of our optical gear that we left behind, which is very useful. Um, it's like we left them fucking pallets of cat. Like it's so insane, man.
Yeah, like the amount of cash that was delivered to Iran by Obama it pales in comparison. Like, like all of those pallets might be what they found in the one
But
video that
here's
has
the
been
thing.
released.
Here's the thing. Those pallets of cash were seized assets. That didn't start as American taxpayer dollars. It became American taxpayer money because it became the government's money via civil asset forfeiture. We gave that money back to people who had left it in American banks where it was seized. The dollars that are over there in Afghanistan started off as taxpayer debt.
Yeah,
There's no like navigating around that fact that it's our money. It's our fucking money.
yeah. No, American dollars.
And let's not
Literally
forget
and
that of all the
figuratively.
assets we left behind there, we left behind over 100 citizens.
Oh yeah, that's right. There's like 20
You
some
know,
kids from California school kids
of
that are
all the
trapped
things
over
we
there.
left behind there, the most valuable of them, like I would be okay if the Taliban said that they're never going to give back all the stuff that we left there, but they're going to give us all of our citizens and be done with it. I could live with that because at least we'd have our people back.
Yeah,
We've got to go in there and take them out right now.
yeah. I mean, they're
I'm not saying that the Taliban are going to do that out of the goodness of their heart. I have no fucking reason to believe that they would ever give us back our citizens. I think we're going to see Jimmy Carter stretched out over 3 years instead of one.
yeah, yeah, thereabouts. And
It doesn't
well,
matter if Harris gets in. Like, and I guarantee, like any impeachment effort is going to start in 2022. It's going to build through the year. If they even get articles passed in the House, which I doubt they will, that
well,
it's
Mitch
not going to
McConnell is
be
an utter and complete bitch. He's already
it's not
said
going to
that
be
he's
done
not even going to do
until
this shit. So he needs to
yeah.
go.
It doesn't matter what he says though. He's in the Senate. He can fuck off.
Well, he
Like
needs to fuck off.
just getting articles introduced in the House would be a big step. And I know that Nancy's not going to allow that. So you're not going to see anything actually happen on that front until 2023. And even then, it's like Democrats have done the most for Republicans that they can at this point for 2022. And in every political calculus they make, they pick the most cynical, asinine, least humane option possible, and then they shoot themselves in the foot with it repeatedly. And then Republicans come in and say, okay, how can we fuck this up the most efficiently? And they do. And it's there's not a single politician, like even if I like them, there's not a single politician in Congress right now who deserves to stay there, who should stay there. Every single one of them should be replaced.
I don't know. I kind of like Marjorie Taylor
We
Greene. She's
left
doing okay.
people. We left people in Afghanistan.
True.
No, MTG. She is a fucking nut, and she's the Republican AOC. She's a disgusting hypocrite, and she doesn't deserve to be in office either.
Care to explain on that?
Well, let's see. She's very big on Christian values, but she decides to hold her forgiveness until she dies by fucking people that she knows in the gym, even though she's married.
Oh.
That's just like for starters. We can go down the list from there.
Hmm.
She's an idiot.
Ah, well.
She is not someone who should be in office. Like if I'm she provides great entertainment value, but if I want a legislator in office, I want a legislator in office. The entertainment comes
Fair.
secondarily if I want to watch the world burn.
Well, I mean, she's the only one that's putting some of this shit forward, and so you're telling me that she's
Yeah,
got
but
a
you see, that's the
fucking load of
problem.
baggage too. So
That's the
great.
problem. Is she is basically the shittiest delivery vehicle for any of this.
Okay, well, I can't really disagree with you.
Instantaneously, she is a perfect controlled opposition.
Yeah, yeah,
Think
okay.
about that for a second.
No,
She
no, no,
shows up
no.
and says, "I want to impeach." Like, who the fuck's gonna listen to her? Who's gonna get behind that?
Yeah.
You know, it's
The
just
thing
like
about it
what's
is,
recently
like,
come out with
the
all this
problem
Matt
is we
Gates
don't
stuff
have
getting Oppo.
anybody that's doing half of what she is that's got any clout.
Is she legislating? Is she on any committees?
Well, they fucking removed her from all of them, so.
Right. So she's got all the fucking time in the world to get stuff done in public, doesn't she? Couldn't write a character like that better.
Hmm. I guess we'll have to see. Duly noted, though. Duly noted. It could be another AOC type situation, like you say, though, where you're not dealing with somebody that's actually not someone as dangerous as the things that they do, because they don't really appreciate how dangerous they are. Because I really think
Yeah,
that's the AOC situation. She's just fucking things
like
up because it's in her nature to fuck things up, and it could
well,
be that this
as
chick has a similar bent, just from a different
I
angle.
think so. Well, look at the way she does her fucking pull-ups. She's not even kipping. She's like, it's fucking. Anyway,
Huh?
in AOC, like she's the kind. I've said this now for years, which is hilarious that she's lasted that long. She's the kind of bartender who tries to pour out a shot and wonders why the alcohol doesn't come out with the cap on.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Did you know that the bar she was bartending at, she was just doing so to cover shifts because she was one of the owners?
Yep.
Isn't that an interesting little fact?
It's kind of like a small loan of $1 million, isn't it?
Yeah. Where have I heard that line before?
Yeah, it's almost like she didn't grow up where she said she did.
Oh, you aren't telling me that Sandy wasn't being entirely honest.
It's kind of like her parents had a nice place out in the middle of fucking rich people land.
Isn't it strange how all these
Like
people...
Jesus in the Bible, she goes from being a fucking child of poverty to being a bartender of wealth, and then there's this big gap in between. Where'd all those years go?
Yeah. I mean, it really is something to see a person that's supposed to have lived in numerous apartments not know what a trash compactor is.
The garbage disposal was the food disposal was the funniest one.
Oh, was it?
Fucking turns
Oh,
on
was it
the
a garbage disposal? I thought it was a trash
yeah
compactor.
she turns on the incinerator.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
the previous tenant, I guess, broke a glass in the sink, and she was wondering what all that noise was. It's like, oh my god, you fucking
Oh,
simpleton.
man, wow.
All right, like people I know who've never had that level of infrastructure knew what the fuck it was.
Yeah, yeah, that's...
Like
I'm a
people
little
in
annoyed that I
distant
didn't remember that correctly,
third
but
world
yeah.
areas of other countries knew what the fuck it was.
That really kind of tells you something. You know, that should be incredibly indicative of a person's privilege, to put it quite literally.
Well,
Because
she assumes, most embarrassingly for the people who were supporting her, she assumed they were stupid enough to believe that. And for about a month, they tried really hard to believe that.
it's funny how they
Oh my
play off a
god, I
lot
don't
of
know what
these
this
things.
is.
It's really funny how they play off a lot of these things. Saki's a perfect example. Something's really grabbed me that just kind of stuck with me. The thing came out about where the Biden dog was like biting the fuck out of everybody, basically, and not just the one time and then the one other time, but just fucking all day, every day, biting people and being terrible and being shitty because when you've got a maggot-filled skin suit trying to train a dog, you're not really going to get much done. So we've got this thing happening all the time. Oh, holy moly, are we going to get a Steve? We might.
In theory.
Oh,
Well,
there's a Steve.
no.
I was
Just
waiting for you to
listening.
finish your point before
Oh,
I brought
yeah,
him
yeah.
up.
So, the point here being, we find out that this dog's been biting the fuck out of everybody. So, reporter, I want to say Peter Ducey? I could be wrong. Asked Insaki, he's like, so, because you lied to us the one time, what's to make us believe that you're not just going to continue to lie to us? Now, I'm paraphrasing, obviously. To which her paraphrased reply would be, your question about the dog is noted. Next question. So, yeah, I mean, it's really just kind of a par for the course thing. We don't even get answers. We get like half replies that aren't even answers to our questions or issues. So, are you dry, Steve?
Am I dry?
Yes.
I've been dry for a little while,
Oh, that's good. That's good.
but I am fed. The dog is walked. We were trying to walk him, and then my wife wanted to do a short loop because her ankle's kind of collapsing.
Ooh.
But he decided he didn't want to go down the short loop, so he just laid down.
Huh.
And dragging 55 pounds a half a mile is a lot harder than walking him the additional 3/4 mile.
That's fair.
Smart motherfucking dog.
Yeah.
I give him credit. Like he does. So my wife he's not the smartest dog in the world. We had a very very smart dog before, like bordering on human intelligence level dog, and he scared everybody because you could tell he was thinking about stuff. Like not in the normal dog way of thinking about stuff. But this one, he's kind of an idiot. He's just just a normal happy-go-lucky dog. But my wife is very convinced that he has high emotional intelligence, which I don't entirely believe is a real thing, but whatever. Other people do. And so that seems to be semi-true, and he does seem to be fairly communicative of his wants and desires. So I give him credit for deciding that he wanted to go for a walk and throwing a fit while he's out in the middle of the walk, just lying down on the pavement, being like, I'm not going to go backwards. We only go forward this way. Sneaky little bugger.
Well, fair enough. Well, I meant more in regards to like your property and or basement being dry.
Oh, my basement being dry. Yes, my basement is dry now.
That's good. That's good. There's a lot of folks in your state that are dealing with very undry basements.
Yeah, but you gotta remember, like I'm in third world, the city version of New York where all the cool shit is, and I'm not in the actual city of New York where all the shitty stuff is. So, and the one thing that is an upside is this terrible hurricane, and it's a tragedy, right? People are losing homes, property, and at least the smell of pee is going to be washed out of the lower tiers of New York City for the month or so that it takes the homeless people to recolonize.
That's true. That's true. It might actually. Well, I mean, it's going to smell like dead fish, but that's going to be way better than urine.
Yeah, I mean, all joking aside, if there is my wife did Habitat for Humanity down in New Orleans back in 2005 or six, 2007. So we are. I'm not a philanthropist. I don't believe in giving money away. I don't think giving money to people who didn't earn it somehow sits there and solves whatever problems come about from that. And that's my attitude towards welfare and charity. But I'm more than willing to sacrifice my labor and my skills, which is worth far more than any amount of dollar value that I'd be willing to give people. So when the dust settles a little bit and it's time to go help people get back, back up and running, my wife and I'll probably take a weekend or two and go down there and help people out.
Yeah. I believe that charity is something that's personal. You shouldn't be handing it off to some organization to pay themselves.
Well, I mean, if I believed that giving money to people solved their poverty problem, like I see that the problem that I have, right, with the whole entire thing is I think that we improperly discuss wealth, right? So we turn around and we say poor people are poor, and that's not entirely true. Like it is true, but it's not true. The reality is, I would say that you can be broke or you can be flush, and these are temporary states of being that can be solved by, just basically a simple trick, right? So you can be poor, right? And you can be flush with cash at some given moment, right? Especially the 1st and the 15th of the month when they have all of their welfare money coming.
Well,
They're
it is
flush
to
with
be
cash
said
for that period.
that there are those that have said that poor is a state of mind, and I personally agree wholeheartedly with that statement.
Well, and that's the thing. I see poor as a non-transient state of wealth, right? So poor is people who are broke consistently, whereas rich is you can be broke and be rich, and you can be flush and be poor, but you can't be poor and rich at the same time. So when I see people sitting there and talking about this, I think that we kind of lose that definition that there's a difference between people who are perpetually poor and who have a perpetual income problem and those people who are temporarily poor due to circumstance. And I'm more than willing to help out people who are temporarily poor due to circumstance. But I have zero interest in helping people who aren't going to take the first step and help themselves. And see people get all angry when you're like, oh, pick yourself up by the bootstraps. But the reality is that if you don't pick yourself up by the bootstraps, I literally can't sit there and hike up your pants for you and walk around all day wiping your ass. Like that's just it doesn't work.
So here's a short clip that I guess listeners can later follow up on.
Oh, from Louis C.K.?
Yeah,
His short bit
being
on
broke.
being broke. I'll include that in the links for everybody.
I can't remember which comedian it was. It was poor versus broke, and it was good. Because obviously the one's the state of mind, et cetera, et cetera. There's
It really
a couple
is.
there's several good comedy skits on the difference, and it's
Like my wife and
this
I
is one
have
on being
been
broke.
my wife and I have been broke. We've been broke for extended periods of time, but we were never poor. Right? Every single time that I did not have any money, I spent the time acquiring new skills. And those skills may not have paid off at any given point in time, but they sure as hell pack a wallop on my paycheck. So there's a very big difference between being poor and being broke.
I mean, I can't necessarily disagree. I'm not making a lot of money, but I've learned quite a lot of things, and I'm doing interesting things in the time that I'm not making a lot. I mean, I'm putting this out there and
That's
sharing
the
that knowledge with everybody, or at least trying to. Some of it.
Oh, I might be. What is a Kolsch? Is a Kolsch like a sour?
What's huh?
Is a Kolsch a sour? Like a beer? I'm
I'm not
shopping for
familiar.
beer because it's beer o'clock and I don't have to go
How
into
do you
work
spell
tomorrow.
it?
So, Kolsch.
It is a German beer from Cologne.
Very mad.
Let's see here. It's, what do you want to know about it?
Is it what style of beer is it? I say passion
Let's
fruit
see.
goes. I mean,
What's the brand?
uh, Druthers. Druthers is a local brewery. It's like right up the road from me.
All right, let's see.
They do a blueberry lemonade. Wow, that's pretty wild.
Tasting notes: light citrus aroma, mild bread and biscuit notes, notable yeast character. Looks like it's a wheat beer, pale wheat beer.
Yeah, sounds like something with a bit of sweetness to it. So
No, it's just too bad because I love sours, and that Druthers had like a go-to sour that I've been, unfortunately for my waistline, going to pretty much all summer. And it was it was strawberry dare. It was just this delicious sour. I think it was a Goes. Like I've got another Goes here that's a passion fruit Goes that I'm seeing. That I may
yeah,
sit there and
they've
try
got a
to-
bunch of sweet looking ones here that are like passion fruit and pineapple and all this. They've got an IPA, but which one are you looking at?
No, I hate IPAs. IPAs are disgusting. IPAs are ways that people hide skin.
Yeah, fair. Which one are you
No,
looking at?
I was looking at the banana passion fruit. So I'm figuring this.
Yeah, that's gonna be kind of a desserty beer, I'd say for sure.
Fucking Fruit Loop.
Listen. I just I've graduated.
I'm just giving you
I
shit.
graduated from pilsners to wheat beers, like any sensible person did, and I reserve the right to kick any IPA drinker in the nuts because they're retarded, and I reserve the right to kick anybody who makes bad decisions in the nuts. That being said, there is another evolution from the wheat beer, which is the sour, and it is delicious and amazing.
You might like an oatmeal stout if they've got one. I mean, that's not getting too heavy into the actual sweet beers kind of thing. That's just more of a heavy flavor.
You should go for a manly stout. God damn it! Get yourself something that tastes like coffee and motor oil.
Yeah, no, sorry. A Guinness. I don't like to chew my beer. I generally like to drink it.
Huh. Hey, it looks like
That's
these guys do an
my
oatmeal stout if
personal-
they've.
You know what the beer originally was, right?
Oh, they do. So when I first came up here, they were like doing this line of like smoked beers, and it was absolutely delicious and amazing.
Huh.
And then and that was when everybody was doing IPAs, and they would just like occasionally kick the poor people with actual taste buds a wheat every once in a while.
I guess I'll throw a link to your website if anybody wants to actually check them out.
I should also point out that it looks like Kolsch's can have a bit of hoppiness to them. Probably not like IPA. Probably not IPA, but probably more hoppy than say a Pilsner or a wheat.
But like I specifically came out to this grocery store to get a sour, and they sold out of my sour. And
Jesus
somebody
Christ.
Sitting there like, you sold out of a sour on the day of my daughter's wedding.
That's exactly right.
They make this stuff called Truth Serum that's a 12% beer. Good God.
Oh,
that's it.
You wanna?
It's
I don't
a
know
Belgian
if you guys can
style
find the site anymore.
triple.
I think the guy sold it, but there was Schmaltz Brewery, and it was a Jewish brewery that did nothing but Jewish shtick for all of its lines, and it was Jubilation or something like that, or Grand Jubilation or Hebrew Jubilation.
I love it.
It's like JEW Jubilation, and that was 21%.
Woo!
So
that
so there's a beer. There's a beer on the same line of things.
Like it's undrinkable, but it was 21%.
There's a beer on the same line of things I found out in Colorado called Hebrew.
Hebrew Jubilation. Yeah.
No. It's just Hebrew, the chosen beer.
Ah, that's kind of funny. Yeah, that may have come from Schmaltz. They were doing.
I don't know where the bottle is, but I ended up bringing it back. I have it somewhere in the house. Probably go find it.
I got so like Hebrew Jubilation was, and I think that's what it was. It's Hebrew Jubilation. That was like this guy just wanted to see how far he could push a yeast culture, and so he'd make one batch of it, and it was never intended to be drunk. and it was just like if he juices the whole entire Megillah with enough oxygen, enough sugar, and at the right temperature, can he sit there and press the threshold? And his quest was because it's still a beer, right? It can be whatever alcohol content as a beer, as long as it doesn't require like concentrating or anything else. Like it has to be brewed that way, and you get the license of this beer.
No shit, it is schmaltz. All right.
Yeah,
Here,
That's
I
legitimately
found
kind
the
of
label.
impressive, actually.
Here's the label
really is.
for the one I was talking
Considering most yeast
The chosen
wipe
beer.
themselves out at like 10-11%. Yeah, getting to 21, like that's
so champagne yeast will get to about 16% before they kind of crap out.
Yep.
Like
That's like the most of the fruit fermented beverages. That's basically about as high as you go up as the champagne yeast. And beyond that, you basically use industrial kinds of yeast, which
I don't know
are not meant for drinking. Yes.
It was definitely not like you crack this thing, right? And you try to drink it. You would try to drink it, and it was like
the side reactions you get are noxious, man. Like it's not necessarily toxic for you on a beer scale, but like it's not flavorful. Well, it's flavorful. It's just not the kind of flavor.
It was like drinking a coffee flavored syrup that had just an insane amount of alcohol.
That was probably done to cover up the extra shit that gets produced by the yeast.
It could be. It was like I
gotta tell you, the stuff you can get. Like, just try it with bread yeast one time, and that'll give you the clue there. It's not good if you just leave it, like just by flavor, not good for you, but like not good tasting. You know, I've made a honey mead I used to make honey mead with bread yeast, and that kind of worked. But if I got the mix like even a hair off, you could really tell by the flavor.
Yeah, on my to-do list at some point when I get done with all of my house repairs and buying my next house, or my second house, I should say. I'm going to be buying like a rental pretty soon to increase my income flow. But when that happens, I will start probably brewing some mead because I have gallons and gallons of honey coming in from hives every year, and I have no fucking clue what the fuck you're supposed to do with gallons and gallons and gallons of honey.
That is a pretty good use for it.
One thing you do is you send some to the two of us.
Yeah, for sure. I am about some honey.
But the second thing you do is definitely brew some honey mead,
because of it at home.
You brew some honey mead because honey, of course, has lots, the natural antimicrobial effect. So the nice thing is, if you dilute it with some sugar water, whichever sugars you feel like putting in there, if you dilute it down enough, the yeast can grow, and you just like dilute it to just that point, and everything else stays dead. So it brews very well and consistent.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
From what I understand, honey mead, once you've got a good formula and you've got your way of doing it down, it's very repeatable.
Use your BZK and clean out your containers and so on. Keep everything clean as you can, but like your risk of contamination throwing your flavor is way lower.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is honey also provides a good sugar source, so that on top of it.
The one thing that drives me a little bit nuts, and this is just a teeny bit nuts in terms of like this comes from being a chemical engineer, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
You know the right way to do things, and knowing that there's the cheap little plastic container that they sell you called Mr. Beer that you can technically brew a batch in, and then it's got little divots and stuff like that in it, and you're like, oh, I can't clean that. I can't clean that with all the steam in the world.
Yeah, what you can do is you can throw some piranha acid in there, and then probably never actually want to drink out of it again because the sulfuric probably came from a lead contacting source.
Yeah, probably.
No, so what I want to do is I want to get an actual metal canister
Yeah, yeah.
at some point,
So I
and
would
like
recommend
it.
get the glass container for the get your pair of glass containers for your the wort preparation and for the beer mash, um,
Hmm.
and also for the fermentation step. So, but you can reuse the glass container. So actually, you only really need one glass container. Like I would recommend glass purely so that you can see everything that's going on. You end up
Well,
putting it in a
so
dark corner for a couple weeks anyway, but like you can
I
see visually when shit happens.
I had a friend of mine whose stepfather made wine, and that was really cool to watch. He had like one of the decanter bottles or whatever the hell it is, and it was just big jug of juice that was
Right.
bubbling up. Like that was really cool. But I
Yeah.
definitely don't want to like. I have zero interest in getting into a position where I don't have something that's either metal or glass. And I'm less
Right.
interested in glass containers just because of breakability and stuff like that.
So
But
what you
yeah,
can do is use a sight glass, but the sight glass doesn't give you any true indication of the head, the foam head.
really.
So you can't really. So basically, with small scale, like what you'd be talking about doing, what you really don't want to do is feed the yeast too quickly, because then you
Yeah.
just have a runaway on the foam head and it just pours out the top.
Hmm.
Because it seems a little silly, but if you do it where you feed it like, because a lot of it's going to happen quickly at the beginning, sure. And the best thing to do is realize that all you really need the CO2 in there for is keeping the air out, because you're going to have to pressurize it later with CO2 in order to get a proper like beer.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you
yeah.
you can do it without pressurizing later on, and that's where you definitely use metal. By the way, get one of those like those soft serve bulk containers, uh, up a little larger than like a fire extinguisher. Like a fire extinguisher would fit inside one.
Mhm.
Um, get one of those for when you want to pressurize with CO2, et cetera, et cetera. And to do that, like just measure out in grams how much dry ice you need and chuck that in there because it's way simpler to do that. But you can hook up a CO2 bottle to it and set the pressure.
Huh.
But yeah, like the
Yeah,
glass
that's
is so much easier to see what's going on, and you can still clean it just as easily as you could with metal. So there's really no downside to it besides the fact that it can break. But if you're wary of that and you take precautions, like not having the dog in the same room, because to be honest, they'll still get right behind you and decide this is the time to nap.
mm. Yeah, I mean, at some point I'll build something that's like an actual rig in the basement.
Yeah.
I have 1,000 other things that I need to be doing,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's very much a shame. Like when you get to a certain point with your skills, you
Yeah.
realize that it doesn't matter how many skills you learn, you don't have the time to execute all of them all the time.
Well, brewing is a nice
And I'm
one because you only need, it's like, especially if you're doing beer, because there's no second step. So I used to I used to make my own absinthe and I used to make my own alcohol. Um, and if you're just making like a honey mead, the nice thing is when it's done fermenting, it's basically done.
Hmm,
If you want to if you want to pressurize it with CO2, you can do that. But like the intermediate time, you really don't need to touch it. Like there's a couple weeks where you don't have to do squat. It's 2 weekends basically, separated by about
really?
2 weeks. Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, I had a guy
Yeah.
told me that honey mead is terrible unless you let it sit for 2 years. I was
Well,
like, that
okay.
doesn't make any sense.
So here's the thing. Like you can do you can do the snobby bottle up and weight thing and yada yada. Fine. And you may as well bottle up a little bit of it when you make your first batch, or you're confident with your batch and you think it's going to be good. You can age it. Like, and I've had aged beer before, and that's also that has varying degrees of good to it. But like once it's done, like it's basically done. It'll be
Yeah,
sweet and it'll
he
be
said that
it'll be alcoholic.
it said that he said that he wasn't really a big fan of the batch of mead that he made until after it had sat in his basement for 2 years, and then all of a sudden it tasted really good to him. So I don't know whether it's true or
Okay.
not. It doesn't really make sense because my
Well, do an
understanding and
experiment.
what
Yeah,
I mean,
from what
I
I
get
know, that
that.
doesn't sound right either.
No, it
But that's the
doesn't
thing.
because
You
it
can
does.
good,
You have exponential curves with all
right?
of these kinds of with both
Yeah, but you
enzyme
have
based
parallel
reactions.
reactions,
True.
and you know how complicated that stuff can get. Like there's intermediates, there's competing intermediates,
Yeah,
et
but it
cetera, et
doesn't
cetera.
typically take more than 2 to 4 weeks, right? Like that's
Well,
not.
you'd think that. I can tell you, having had the same from the same exact, I think probably the same barrel of wine, the same wine at two different years, it did change, and this is well after bottling.
Yeah, I mean that
Like
is
it
actually
does
a
it does
very
make a
real
bit of a
effect.
difference.
But I
Now
mean,
that said, that's wine. That's not honey mead, which is a very different mixture. I mean, wine. Unless you're having yourself a dessert wine, wine is not going to be sweet like a honey mead. It's an entirely different chemistry going on, besides the fermentation part. So
Yeah,
well, not
that's
only
on
it,
that. I
my
it's
to-do
mean,
it's not
list.
something that would be hard to test. You just got to put some away for a couple of years. What you can do also is
That
before the carbonation step, you could hard freeze part of your batch, like in plastic bottles, so that they don't explode, and keep them for the same amount of time, and then carbonate away at the end, and see what the difference in taste is.
yeah, that might actually be a worthwhile experiment.
Well, see, the problem that I have with experiments is they take time.
Well, you're already talking about a 2-year investment.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go ahead and do it, why not just go ahead and set a little bit to the
But
side?
it could
Well, and
be like at the end.
that may be something that gets done. I just, again, I got to get to the point where I actually have the time to sit there and sit down
Right.
and do this. And
But the
I
nice
agree with
thing
you.
again,
It's probably not that bad. It's just
there is the prep for it, blah blah blah. But again, if you spent, you're basically going to spend a solid morning or day, the first part of it, just to get the mash going, and then it sits in a
yep.
closet for a while, and then at the end you just gotta like bottle it. Like that takes maybe a day. Carbonizing it will take overnight, um,
Hmm.
and then it's ready to go.
Well, see,
Not
so
carbonate, sorry,
remember
carbonating.
the stuff that the Mr. Beer comes with is little sugar pills. And that's how
Yeah.
you carbonize your beer. I'm like, hey, I'll just get
No,
one of
so
those.
so you can do the full for the listener, Mr. Beer Kit. There's a couple of varieties of it. The one variety that he's referencing here, so the sarsaparilla kit they sell is a good example of this. What you can do is basically you feed in the exact amount of yeast and sugar and then other stuff that it tells you, and you cap it, and you cap it until it clicks, and then it's shut. Nothing's getting in or out, and there's just enough of the stuff that's inside there, and the walls of the bottle are thick enough that it's not going to blow up from the pressurization that happens over a couple weeks.
Yep.
Typically, what you do is you install a bleeder, water valve bleeder up top, and it basically allows gas to escape with a little inverted cup that's the rim of which sits inside liquid. Um, but it doesn't allow gases to get back in because it's got a water seal. So
Yep.
you lose all your pressure, but you allow the product of your reaction to leave, which drives the reaction forward. And there's multiple reactions there, but the eventual end product is going to be CO2 and water.
Oh, and
So
just as a by the by, it looks like Mr. Beer has a Labor Day sale. I'll put a link to that.
Yeah.
I'm going to get this up tonight, so if anybody wants to order from them, they'll be doing
Okay.
that, looks like, all weekend. It's 15% off site-wide.
Cool.
Very nifty.
Yeah, it'd be nice if I
So,
could get a link or
yeah.
something for sending some
Yeah,
business.
really.
But whatever. Anyway, yeah, check it out if you're interested.
Well, so well, here's the thing: is I wouldn't recommend. Now I'm ruining a business deal. I wouldn't recommend using Mr. Beer unless it's like
Well,
your
then.
first time and you're trying to discover the mechanics of it.
Well,
At which
I
point,
think,
it's a
I think
nice.
that's the key, right?
It's a kitchen kit,
Like,
you know. It's to do with your kids.
That's exactly what it is, right? So it's designed that way. It's like it's plug and play. They walk you through all
They
the
know
stuff.
it's not anything
That
more than
little-
that.
Yeah, and that there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. I
When
think
I
it's
say-
as a
when I
demo
say
kit
it
for a
makes me
kid, it's
wince,
awesome.
Yeah, when I say it makes me wince, that's me speaking as an engineer going, no.
Right.
No. I
But
don't
this could
do
be
anything.
bigger. Let's
less
make
than
it
perfect.
bigger, bolder. Let's make it do stuff.
Or just, I don't do anything less than perfect. Like it's that simple. Like there's no plastic containers that I'm going to
So
use.
one thing
to
you
put my
also
back-
want to do, when you finally do get going, is you're going to want to pick a yeast that's well characterized. Crack out your Michaelis Menten and sort your stuff. Figure out what kind of growth curve you want. You can do your stepped intervals for additions for sugars, as well as your enzymes. So the nice thing about doing, so if you're doing stuff like distilling off for making a grain alcohol or making a flavored hard liquor, the best of that is that you can add in enzymes to break down stuff during the mash maceration. So maceration is when you allow it to sit there. The mash is the stuff that provides the alcohol via the sugars and so on. So the mash, you can put in stuff that's starchy and stuff that's like woody, and unlike with a beer, because then you can add in enzyme to break that stuff down in the middle of the maceration, and that'll release more sugar into the mash, which then produces more alcohol. It's kind of a boost later on as the yeast is kind of overpopulating. You can sustain that overpopulation for a little bit longer before it kills itself in its own poo. With beer, you kind of have to. You can do stepped additions, but you don't want to do so. Oftentimes, what happens at the very beginning is you add in your malt, which is starchy. You add in your hops, which has alpha acids, which breaks that down into simpler sugars. You can kind of do that all at the very beginning when you boil up the stuff to activate it before you add the yeast. The stuff you boil up is called a wort, and you chill that down to about like 80 Fahrenheit or whatever, so you still have high activation potential for your yeast when you add it in. It's still hot, so the yeast gets activated quickly, but it's not like boiling hot, which would kill it all. But you want to pick a good yeast line, and then you can do a couple different batches with different yeast lines. Those take, again, like 2 weeks to prepare, but you're really only doing 2 days out of that 2 weeks.
Would you have any particular recommendations on a yeast line?
So the thing is, like a generic brew. So unless you have a particular alcohol
I think
target,
the quick answer to this question is: are you a hardcore feminist or not?
right? So if you have a particular yeast line in mind, or sorry, well, not a yeast line, if you have
Didn't
particular
pick up
alcohol
on it.
content in mind, if you want to nail on the head, hit an alcohol content, then you search by that and you pick that yeast. But a generic brewer's yeast is going to be just fine. It's just that it may not be as well characterized. If they're selling a particular line, then that would be one to go with if you can find the parameters for it. Just
There's
like if you
beer
want to
yeast. There's all kinds of yeasts.
right. So brewer's yeast is the kind of the generic term to start with. A champagne yeast is not going to give you a good beer. I can tell you that one from experience. You might think that it sounds like a reasonable idea at the start there, but it's really not. Brewer's yeast is good. Some bread yeasts can be used, but only with like a honey mead.
I was
Anything
about
else,
to ask
and
about that. What
and
would
they
you
give
want to
shit.
use specifically for a honey mead? Like
So
to make a
it's,
good, to make a flavorful one batch, you don't have to wait a million years honey mead.
So keep in mind, I was doing this in high school, so there's a little bit difference in experience here. But, like I was using the
Oh,
just the
no
bread
doubt. I'm
yeast.
sure there's
Generic,
actually a greater wealth of product available
yeah,
now too, since
I
home
was using the
brewing has
generic bread
exploded.
yeast out of the kitchen. It's like the red stripe on the yellow background. Um,
Oh, that's your standard stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, use
the
your plain
basic
old
stuff you find
generic.
at the grocery store.
Now,
All right.
Yeah, what was it like? It's like diamond or platinum or whatever the fuck it is. It's got you know what I'm talking about. It's generic. Go to the store and pick some up bread yeast.
Yeah, I know
But
exactly what you're talking about.
the important thing to do is to get just enough water for the fermentation to start. Like it's still the water because so it was, I would start off with half and half, and then I was brewing the stuff in Zephyrhills bottles back when they had the normal like over the top cap with the pull spout, and I would wrap 6 rubber bands around it at offset angles. It would hold enough pressure to actually carbonate it too.
Huh. Oh, that's
And
interesting.
that was my cap. Yeah, so I didn't have any liquid in the cap, which meant that sometimes a batch would go off if the sprue was not properly cut off with a little pull spout. But I could always fix that with a little bit of sandpaper or a lighter. And I would get a good seal, and it would hold it down until enough pressure built up, and it was a decent amount of pressure. It was pretty pushing out the sides pretty well. It would bulge out the bottom before it would push the cap up. But it didn't explode on me ever, which is thank God for that. And knock on wood. I would. It was funny. I remember telling this to my friends in high school, and they were just freaking floored. I used to go down. So my dad's got insomnia the same way I do. So I'd have to wait till after he and I watched MST3K, and he would go to bed at like 3, 4 in the morning. I would go back downstairs, put a fucking pot on the stove with this stuff, like to get alcohol out of this. I put a pot of this stuff on the stove and boil it, and I had a Dixie cup, a little a kitchen cup, uh, so a little paper cup and a bag of ice that I held over it with my hand, and I just collect the drips off of that.
That's. I want to say
And then
that's ghetto, but that's like ghetto engineering.
but then
we don't have
I was able to mix
very
that with like butter lifesavers, and apparently I was able to sell that to a kid in high school, which I thought was hilarious. This is me in middle school, by the way. I did this shit.
That's pretty classy, dude. That's
That was fucking funny.
that's some good teenage scamming. Like bravo.
And then I went to college and I got put in charge of the distillation columns there.
Well, I mean, you already had experience, so it's just
Right.
it's natural. Yeah, you're just like that kid who's been driving since he was 13. It's just whatever.
Well, I was largely using it as a solvent, because it obviously it cleans stuff very well. I would triple distill, and then I basically had like 80 or 90% at that point, and that's good enough to light shit on fire and to clean glassware. So alcohol lamp and solvent. There you go.
Oh yeah, no. I
Oh.
mean, alcohol is an amazing cleaner. Actually, I use it pretty frequently
Yeah.
myself.
It's not as good as what is that stuff called?
Acetone?
My brain is that stuff's good stuff.
Acetone, methyl ethyl ketone, and then piranha acid. Piranha acid's one of my favorites because you do your acid bath, you do your base bath, you do your acid bath, your base bath, then you go into piranha acid for your final step. Take it out, and if you're not wearing the right gloves, then you're part of the piranha acid bath at the same time.
Oh.
So it's not as immediately corrosive as the name suggests, but anything that's carbon based will be removed.
Carbon
Period.
based.
And anything that's like any metal ion will more or less be removed. It's 35% hydrogen peroxide with 98% sulfuric acid.
Huh.
1-to-1 mixture, and that stuff is brutal.
Interesting.
And the nice thing is, when you mix it, it immediately starts boiling because all the heat gets released. So if you just pour 50/50 by volume into whatever glass you're any whatever glassware you're trying to get clean. All you have to do is put a hot plate under it and top it up with fresh peroxide solution over time as it eats its way through stuff.
Huh.
Like there's glassware that looks unrecoverable, that's coated in just the nastiest tar. This stuff will get rid of it.
Wow.
And it's
Interesting.
funny, like if you go on eBay, you will find glassware that looks atrocious.
Oh, I've
But
seen
as long
some.
as the
I
glass
remember
is
back in
intact,
high school, I saw some awful shit in our school labs.
yeah, as long as the glass is intact, you can do your acid-based washes, which will remove a lot of the stuff that will come out. And then whatever is refusing to come out, you just throw piranha acid at it, and which by the way, you can just use your generic drain cleaner acid from the hardware store. That stuff's usually like 93%, so you might have to boil it off a little bit at the beginning to get it to really start doing its job right. But as long as you can get your 35% peroxide, which is I know harder to do these days. um, so it's funny that stuff was being sold as a homeopathic remedy on Amazon. I used to get the best hydrogen peroxide on Amazon because the 1 minute miracle was what it was called. They would say you take 1 drop of 35% peroxide, you put it into a gallon of water, and then you add 1 drop of that pre-mixed solution to an 8-ounce glass of water, and you drink that. And I started thinking, that's one, you're not getting any peroxide at that point, and two,
Well,
why
you're
the fuck are
getting.
you producing such high
Oh,
quality
what the fuck
peroxide
is
for
the?
this?
What's the way they explain that? You're getting the energy, or the
Right.
alignment of the fucking
Bullshit.
water or
You
whatever.
see, at that point, you're not even doing the what the fuck's it called? The shaking in each of the three cardinal sorry, each of the three primary axes. You know, you chuck it forward and backward, side to side, and up and down.
Yeah, and you got to do that a prime
Um,
number of times too, of
cessation
course.
or something. You do that 10 times each direction.
Oh, no,
It's
no, no, no. Ten's an even number. That's no good. You're gonna have to do it 11.
but anyway,
But anyway,
you chuck it like that. It's what you're supposed to do. They don't tell you how to, like, they give you a pamphlet of it. It's hilarious. Like it was fantastic comedy reading when I had, like, I still understand why they made such high quality peroxide, and it was definitely 35%. I used to get that stuff by like the 6 gallon pack on Amazon, and delivered to my door. Actually, I had to go back home from a couple of tailgates to be able to make sure I could pick that stuff up, because you don't want to sit out in the sun or any of that jazz.
oh yeah, no,
But now,
that's
there's some changes in Department of Transit regulations, and like now I think they're only selling it at like 6.25%, which is still way higher than the 3% you get in the drugstore. But and you can boil that stuff down. By the way, just don't do it if you have no idea what you're doing, because it will explode. Um, the rocket fuel that the Germans used in some of their rocketry in the middle of the war, after we cut them off from being able to use their supply lines, before they developed before they fully industrialized, I should say, the Haber and Ostwald processes to get their ammonium nitrate, they were using hydrogen peroxide as their rocket fuel. I think it was called T-Stoff. I think that was it. But it was
I remember
80%
the mention
peroxide.
of hydrogen peroxide rockets.
It was 80% hydrogen peroxide in the fuel, 80% peroxide, just the makeup 20% was water. And it's because if you concentrate it any further than about 80%, a little over 80%, it will spontaneously explode with a heat source. So you basically cannot even evaporatively dry it out higher concentration without having an explosive hazard. And it's like there's no stabilizer you can add to it really either at that concentration. It just kind of goes. So 80% is like the max you can do, and 35% is already scary dangerous for your skin and your clothes and your everything around you. So 80% is overkill. For anything you might use 35% peroxide for, like 80% is just scary, disastrously scary. So
Huh.
you can boil it down, uh, to get rid of the extra water. It boils at a higher temperature than water does, and it'll preferentially concentrate, but you can't necessarily get your concentration while you're boiling it down unless you know what you're doing. And so
Yeah.
people have tried, because some hydrogen peroxide does boil out, and unless you know, like say for instance, unless you have your titration set up ready to go right there, your iodine titration, in which you have to back titrate from a known quantity of iodine with a starch solution. Unless you've got your setup ready to go and you're doing regular kind of quality assurance checks to make sure you know what you've got, you can easily way overshoot. Because as it boils off water, it gets hotter and boils off water more effectively.
That makes sense.
So yeah, and then problems.
So yeah, I can see
So
that spiraling out of control really fast, and
right,
higher your concentration gets, the more
it's what's
dangerous
called
it's going to get.
it's what's called a concentrating explosive hazard. In fact, the previous stereotype of chemists blowing up their houses or blowing up labs was from a different peroxide. It was from an ether peroxide that gets formed from diethyl ether, which is a fantastic solvent.
And
But
ether
unfortunately,
peroxide? Oh my,
so
that sounds like
diethyl
it
ether
could be
will
a frightening self-feeding explosion.
so what happens is diethyl ether will combine with oxygen in the air to form diethyl ether peroxide. So you know how an ether works, where it has an oxygen in the middle. Well, now there's two. Uh, Magic, and it will form a white crystalline crusty powder on the cap of your ether bottle, and it is a sensitive explosive, which
Huh.
means opening your ether bottle can cause an explosion, which of course means all your flammable ether is now in a fireball.
Oh, lovely.
Or what's more likely to happen, because most chemists are pretty careful about that hazard, they'll close the cap tightly, they'll make sure it's like, inside a container, et cetera, et cetera. What normally happens is air gets inside the bottle, and then the oxygen from that air gets consumed almost entirely, in forming ether peroxides in solution. And those are what's called a concentrating explosion hazard. And basically, if you allow your ether, which is very, very volatile, to boil off, especially over a flame, uh, which is safe until you reach high concentrations of the peroxide, which can then explode, shattering the bottom of your glassware, allowing the ether to immediately contact fresh flame, causing your fireball. So, thankfully, that is way more dangerous than the peroxide I'm talking about, which is hydrogen peroxide. But hydrogen peroxide, if you use it like that, yeah. Anyway, peroxide tangent and chemistry lesson over.
Yeah, no, that was absolutely fascinating. I learned at least 3 new things.
But yeah, so the prana acid, um, if you've really got a bad stain in a piece of glass, acid and base soaks so pool acid, muriatic, or hydrogen chloride, all the same thing, will work as your acid bath. So you can just go down to your Home Depot or your Lowe's and pick up a gallon of that. For the base, same location. Pick up a bottle of sodium hydroxide, usually used as a drain cleaner. It's like Red Devil is the brand I usually go with. Um, you pick up, you make sure you read the label and that there's no aluminum added to it. Those bottles that have 2 different sides to them, that have powder contents, will typically have one side be primarily sodium hydroxide, one side be primarily aluminum. And it's because it will make a very, very, very hot reaction happen and loosen up stuff in a drain. But if you're doing an acid and base wash pair, you have 2 bins with an acid and a base in each one of them, and you soak your items in one, then the other, and you do that twice, and it typically will loosen up anything that is going to come loose from that. That usually is all you need. You usually don't need to do piranha acid. But if you do, it's an option that gets rid of anything that's carbon based, and most metal based rusts. But I would not put a piece of metal that you want to keep inside piranha acid.
No, I can't
No,
imagine that's going to
I've
be.
got some tiles that I have sitting in muriatic acid. So I had a shitty
Yeah.
handyman come in to do some tile work for me. The last time we actually hired somebody to do work because they did a terrible job. So
Uh,
I just do everything myself now,
Fair.
Understandable.
to the detriment of my time. But yeah, so I didn't want to lose the tile because it's like $2 a piece of tile. And
Right.
so he ruined something like 40 pieces of tile. It's like 80
Holy
bucks. So I was
shit.
like, all
Oh
right, let's see
wow,
if I can salvage it, right?
Right.
Um,
worth a shot.
and
Shit.
so I popped it all. Hey, he didn't properly secure it, so I was able to pop every single tile up off the floor.
Ah, Jesus.
Minor minor dings and damages, but I soaked it. It's been sit. I soaked it in muriatic acid, and that would clean it off, and then you just dump it in a solution of
Yeah.
baking soda and water.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how I was cleaning the tile. Then I abandoned the project like 2 years ago, and so the tubs are still sitting outside with a whole bunch of tile in both of them actually.
Huh.
So
So that was something I didn't
opposite.
mention at the end there, is that you should have a neutralizing bath as your intermediate step or your final step.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how they've survived.
Well, it probably survived just fine.
Well, I mean, they might be absolutely pristine.
Well, or I mean, I'm guessing if they were put open into the air, some stuff might have been growing on them, but the ceramic's definitely fine.
Yep. Yeah, I opened it once like last year. I was like, holy shit, this stuff has not actually damaged the photo print or anything on it.
No,
Like
no, that's
porcelain tiles
usually
amazing.
so the way they do the decoration on the surface is usually it's a baked-in additive. Uh, that's all that's all ceramic, the coloring part too.
Oh yeah, like a
Amazing stuff.
kind of a layer.
Yeah, so it's like a glaze.
Yeah.
Um, Usually there's a clear coat glaze on top of that if you get the more expensive ones.
Well, I mean, you can screen
For
print glaze.
cheap ones, right? Well, that's the thing it's all the decoration is all done prior to the kiln.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, all the texturing and patterning, all that stuff. It's all done before the kiln.
Which another little piece to that, which you'll probably know, but a lot of our listeners might not, is that's similar to the way that a lot of action figures and toys are colored. The inside
Similar.
of the mold is painted so that
Yes.
when the plastic, resin, rubber, whatever's put in there, it fuses with that paint and it becomes basically a layer unto itself.
Yes. No, it depends on the process and the product.
Oh, sure,
For
sure.
example, injection molded buckets are typically film decorated. So what happens is the decoration is produced in a separate extrusion process where they usually for buckets it'll be blown films, and so they get basically a plastic tube that they chop up, and on the outside of that plastic tube, on the one side they've printed the one bit of information, on the other side they print the other side of it, and that is stuck into the mold and held in by static discharge, and so it will cling to the interior of the mold prior to the mold closing and filling. So there's by just static difference, there is a potential holding it in place, and when it fills in, it's already pressed against the outside edge. There's not really an opportunity for plastic to get between the decoration and the mold surface. So I know this from watching it happen at an industrial trade show. Besides learning it, so I've seen it actually happening in front of me.
Hmm. Yeah,
But yeah,
there's
the painting the inside of the mold thing is very common. It's typical for an action figure. It's way more complicated apart. There would be an automated painting process that would happen, or they just have a bunch of paint inserts that they kind of slap against the side and then take out.
or it's done by Uyghurs in a slave camp.
Right.
Either
Yes, with
or.
lead-based paint.
Oh yeah, absolutely. With arsenic added just to make sure the reds
Yeah,
pop.
and what the hell is the other melamine in the plastic? So once you chew through the hardened vanadium and all the other shit sitting on the outside, you get down to the melamine, which is really what your kids need.
Yeah, BPA's are for sissies.
You need that hard cancer that comes in 10 years or less guaranteed, or your money back.
Absolutely right. Only the best for China's best customer. As long as the big guy gets his 10%, right?
Yeah.
It all works out at the end.
Man, is he fucking getting it.
Yeah. So I think that
Well,
his own base might actually be pissed off enough to do something about this, or at least demand their uppers do something about it. They
so
very
that's the
well.
funny thing. They're going to basically falter in 2022, and we're going to end up with a Republican Congress. The best thing in the world would be if we got a Republican supermajority. Like, if we could just bypass Biden altogether,
That
that
would
would
be
be perfect.
best. I mean, I'd honestly like
It
to.
won't happen, but, like, I can I have hopes and dreams, you know?
I
Like,
mean,
just
at this
replace
point,
all the people there and get the good ones in, and then we
ugh,
get that shit done.
which by the way, Crenshaw is not one of the good ones.
No, he's a
Crenshaw
politician.
is a he's he's a rhino in elephant's clothing or donkey's clothing.
He's I would no I'd say this, he's a Republican. You gotta, like, both parties are shit. You can't do not let yourself fall into a label. If you're gonna pick a principle, stick with it, and if they're not representing you, then they're not representing you.
Well, I
Period.
mean, I'm not going to get anybody
Party
that
line
represents
voting is
me.
just cancer.
I'm a fucking nationalist libertine. Like we're about as dying a breed as there is. So nobody's going to represent me. So I've just got to pick the best of, the bad choices.
Right. Well, no, pick
The
whoever's
guy
gonna
who
represent you
represents me
best.
best isn't in my state.
Yeah,
Poor
exactly.
Dr. Paul.
Is his name DeSantis?
Why is he? No, it's his name is Dr. Paul. Don't even, you little bastard.
Oh, is your lab assistant
Well,
come
I'm
in?
fucking trying to see. Yeah, well, he's decided to try to steal some chips. And he thought that, well, I ran to the bathroom real quick. He get those chips.
No, I thought he'd be slick, the little bastard, huh?
He did. So now he can just stare at the bag of chips. He never gets any more chips.
Ah, dangerous game. Rolled the dice and he lost.
He did.
Oh, speaking of rolling the dice, did you guys? I've got
He just
like,
fell off the couch.
oh, that's funny.
Eh.
I've got kind of a. Well, I know you guys probably heard
the
about
best
the initial
is
part
I
of the
like-
story, which was a pretty shitty bad story. So I've got a pretty good end to a real shitty story. That'll be a nice way to kind of close out the night. So you guys heard about the mom out of Illinois? Was it Illinois? Yeah, out of Illinois. They were going in for some sort of custody deal. It was, I think it was either like
Child support payments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the one that she was
Yeah,
using,
child
using
support.
using a vaccine to keep the dad from seeing the kid, right?
Other way around. But yeah,
Okay.
Dad was using that to. Well, no, actually, that
it.
wasn't it at all.
Oh,
That was what was done.
Nope.
The way that it was. I've got it in the show ideas if you want to actually look at it. It's the very last thing I've linked. But what basically happened there, this woman had gone in with her husband. They were doing the child support amounts. It had nothing at all to do with custody or anything. The husband, his lawyer, hadn't brought up anything about the vaccine. The judge asked the woman, "Are you vaccinated?" And not only she says no, yes, of course, everybody's heard this. She said no, but she has said because her doctor says because of conditions that she has,
Right.
it would be unwise for her to take the vaccine. So,
Exactly.
she's doing as her doctor said, just like Joe Rogan. So anyway, she's doing just like her doctor says, and the judge is like, okay, well, I'm taking away custody of your child. So
Well,
this,
the good part in this, the best part about this story, is the judge not only sat there and reversed his thing after public backlash, but recused himself. Straight up, he should be.
Really? I didn't hear about the recusal. On top of that,
Perfect.
oh, excellent.
Good.
That's an even
He should
better
straight
ending
up
than
be
I'd hoped
Stay
for.
the fuck out of it if you're
Oh
gonna try
yeah,
and
fuck
be
this
a
guy.
doctor
Disbar
from the
this
bench.
motherfucker.
Yeah, if you're stepping up to, when people turn around and say the vaccines aren't political, this is a perfect example of how they're being used politically.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I don't mean this in the right left culture war bullshit. People are choosing to take actions that have nothing to do with something and decide who gets to do what solely based on their vaccine status. That is
Oh, you
politics.
saw Candace Owens early, so I actually meant to bring this one up for you. You saw the Candace Owens put out that video on Instagram, right? Like 10 minutes. I highly recommend you watch it.
I haven't seen the
I
video, but I do
I
know
put a
the
tweet out
story, and
earlier.
I can actually give a real quick rundown on that because it's very very poignant. She was going to what was it she was trying to do, where she had to
She
get
was
tested?
going to an event in Aspen, Colorado,
Okay, yeah, and she
and
had to get tested. So
she
she
had to
has
get
the
tested to go to
option
the
of
event.
like going down to fucking CVS or Walgreens or whatever the fuck and waiting in like some 7-hour line that may not even get
No,
through.
so there is the public option, which is the only other option there, so according to the bitch at the clinic. There's the public option, which is near the courthouse or what have you, downtown, and it's like back alley, and they have an inconsistent schedule. They send their samples to Texas. They send samples to Texas for testing. So by mail, whatever.
So no rapid
So
turnaround whatsoever.
no rapid turnaround. Period. Inconsistent and slow turnaround. And the bitch, the clinic. So Candace's I guess assistant or husband, I don't know who it was. Whoever, it's in the video. Candace's person sets her up, so books her an appointment, and then is shocked and tells her we got an email and it's insane, and it's this Suzanne or Susanna is the name. It's the person, like the head, the owner of the place that emailed them. And Candace used her marriage name, not her birth name. So it wasn't Candace Owens that was on the list, which meant that someone Googled her name and then found out it was Candace Owens.
Oh, on top of that.
Yeah.
Really?
So really, she used her marriage name. So it wasn't Candace Owens on the list, which meant they had to either someone like
So they went out of their way.
into her life.
At a bare minimum, they went out of their way.
Oh.
At the bare minimum, they went out of their way to do this.
At the end of the day, like the term politics gets used a lot, and I know that we tend to sit there and talk about this in the context of the culture war, which is one aspect. But politics tends to get used a lot, and politics is really actions that are undertaken by individual actions or words or that are undertaken that like defy logic, that have no basis in reality. And that's what it is. That's when management comes down and tells you to do something that's extremely stupid.
She was denied a COVID test because of who she is.
Right. Because of what you believe.
And because she was told, like, you espouse anti-vax and spread misinformation and yada yada. It's like she's complying with and within her principles too. She's complying with the requirements to attend the event.
Well, the fun part is this is one of those things where you can literally probably sue them over it.
And
well, that's a funny thing.
She can definitely do that because at the end of the email that she said this woman was like going, "Ha ha, you're not going to be able to go. Ha ha, good luck getting tested."
Well, it turns out. You want to reel it or will I?
Go.
Okay. So this organization is receiving public funds, and as a publicly funded healthcare option, they don't have the ability or right to turn anybody down for this service.
Exactly.
So you were right to mention suit. And she's already, from what I understand, she's already started pursuing those options, if I'm not mistaken.
Good.
And these are the kinds of things, like, this is something that conservatives and Republicans need to do a little bit more often, is they need to start sitting there and waggling their finger just as much as the left does. Because the left walks in when they find something they don't particularly like, they go sit there and they go immediately to lawsuits and courts and stuff like that. And this is what Republicans and conservatives need to do, or libertarians or whatever. When somebody sits there and does this kind of shit, you just go immediately to the law. Because 9 times out of 10, this stupid little lash out that the left does is typically illegal, and we just turn the other cheek, and that results in problems. And I mean, I've been doing it at work a little bit with the COVID stuff, because they wanted to roll some stuff out. So I started asking some really uncomfortable questions to upper management, and I finally got a damn straight answer. And they need to know that you're prepared to sit there and go to war over this stuff in
And you
order
need to
for
go to
you
war over
to
this
make
shit.
any point.
Like
Well, here's
like
the thing.
yeah.
She's complying. Like she's complying with a health thing. Like there's no moral high ground for this bitch to be denying her a COVID test.
9 times out of 10, there's never a moral high ground, right? When Antifa shows up, they don't have a moral high ground.
On top of principle and on top of legal, there's no moral reason. Like it's just because she's a cunt, and she doesn't like Candace Owens. Like, and she basically says this in the email. Like it's, and then Candace writes back her own email, which I wouldn't have advised if I was sitting there going, well, maybe this can turn into a lawsuit. I would have said, all right, say nothing, and then just figure out the way to get tested and sue her later. But I have to agree with Candace on this point. Like, the thing that was probably the funniest was this woman thought there was no other way, like between Aspen and Texas, that there wasn't another way for Candace to go get a test to go to this event.
Yep.
Like besides this back alley thing, that wasn't going to be possible. Like you fucking.
I mean, at the end of the day, right? This is kind of the problem. Like when you start talking about the things where I start raging against these idiots and their COVID shit, be it masks, or be it vaccines, or be it whatever, right? The bottom line is that when you turn around and you give up your freedom, and I don't care what the goddamn cause is, it's idiots like this that will prevent you from getting it back. Because they're going to sit there and think that their sacrifice is, their minors sit there, whatever they're doing to you is in the name of some sort of greater good. And these people are the scary motherfuckers that are why Nazis roamed the world at one point. It's because there's a whole lot of people who say, I can do bad things as long as it means good outcomes.
And the thing about it is, they aren't really in the majority. As much as they might have positions of power, they're really pushing hard against something that's getting real ready to push back. And when that happens, it's not going to be pretty.
Well, I mean, I think it already has, right?
It has already begun, but I mean, like,
I'm looking
ugly.
across the country, right? The Democrats align themselves very hard with the hardcore COVID measures. And right now, they're getting pushback. They're getting pushback in masks in schools. They're getting pushback against vaccine mandates in ultra-liberal states, right? The bottom line is that they may actually lose the governorship of California to a pro-abortion or an anti-abortion conservative. That's a huge swing in that state, solely on the premise that people are pissed off at the fucking Democrats.
Oh yeah, entirely based on their own overreach and hubris.
Right. The tide is turning, and cancel culture is getting old, and people are getting sick of it. I thought that people were getting sick of it 2 years ago, right? That's my mistake, because I was sick of it 4 years ago. Right?
No, they were.
But I thought
they were. It's just you've got to remember who's in charge of the media telling them what to say.
I mean, maybe, but I thought when we started seeing things like Dave Chappelle's special and all that stuff, where the comedians were actually coming out and starting to ping on this stuff and say this is fucking retarded, I thought that we were at that point. But right now, where we have parents going out of their way to actually show up to school board sessions, we have students walking out and not screaming something about anti-Trump bullshit, but actually screaming stuff, no masks, this kind of stuff. Where people are actually standing up, the Democrats may actually have lost not just the present, but the future.
It's 12:15.
Oh yeah. Get out of here before you turn into a pumpkin,
tweets
sir.
On here. Just a couple tweets on here. You mentioned the whole Nazi thing. That just immediately reminded me of me telling a dipshit he's a dipshit earlier, and then what just dropped into a DM.
Wait, you were talking to yourself?
Yes, exactly. So
you should,
and then what just popped into my DM was that security experts are calling for a rigorous audit of California recall elections, citing an increased risk from a software breach.
Huh.
So, of course, I have to say, hey, look, guys, and another most secure election in history is about to happen.
Oh, great.
Well, I mean, at the end
On
of
the
the
lines
day,
of like
this
the
is
Nazi thing
I
that you
still
mentioned, just this guy talking about how without the ability to wait long enough, you can't kill off all the Downs kids. It's and so he effectively says we should be allowed the opportunity to kill disabled people before they can be born on the sole basis that they're disabled. And I said, now replace disabled with Jewish and tell me, hey, you're not a fucking Nazi.
Actually, you don't even have to do
You know,
that.
mm,
If I'm not
or
mistaken,
try
that
to
was
explain
kind
it
of
to
the
a Downs.
whole thing,
Yeah,
wasn't
that's
it?
one of them, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you don't even have to replace anything. That was like part of the whole deal.
Believe me, if I hadn't said to replace it with Jewish, this is the kind of person who wouldn't fucking understand it anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
You have to hit
how to
morons like this in
Well,
the
no,
face
see,
with it.
you just made it worse. Now it's like, oh, sorry, I hate Jews. Need to bond, divest, and sanction Israel. There you go.
Yeah, you see, that's
I'm
the
not.
thing. It's probably gonna happen.
I haven't been following the recall election in California too much. I just know that Larry Elder is up quite a bit. Anybody know where
Yeah.
that's landing right now? Like
I
how
have no idea.
who's
I
winning?
hope it lands
Okay,
with Larry Elder
so
because that
based
guy's
on some
incompetent.
numbers I heard today, there's excuse me. So based on cooked numbers, because I mean that's what they are. That's how this is going. Because Gavin Newsom has connections with these people. So the cooked numbers say that 53% of people support a no on recall, which means there's 47% of basically these cooked numbers that say that they do support a recall. Now, knowing that you can manipulate these to a high degree, let's throw 30% on that. So,
What's the poll source? Because that matters. That would be the difference.
It's largely obfuscated, so we can take that to mean that it's not
Democrat
really
sources.
good. Yeah. So, as I say, we can probably swing that 30%. You
reminded me of this poll right here on whether or not Joe Biden deserves to be impeached.
Oh,
this is a Rasmussen poll, but so Rasmussen does lean GOP.
Yeah.
But
I
look
do
at the
actually
numbers.
think that he should be.
Well, you see, it leans GOP by like a few percent, not like by 10 or 20%. So all voters, 60%, say that he should be impeached.
I'm going to say that I do think he should be impeached, and it's not because I am somehow anti-Joe Biden, right? Like, I wish the Democrats the best in ruling the country, right? I don't think that they'll be successful, but I always wish for the best, because if they are successful, right, and they get what they want, and it's really this grand, glorious utopia that they predict, then great, it's a grand, glorious utopia for me. Now, it never works out that way, but in terms of things that Joe Biden has done that are very much impeachable, everything from the border to handing names over to the Taliban puts you on that list of like high crimes and misdemeanors.
Yeah.
So, now the difficulty is we'd have to deal with Kamala, but if it was my choice, I would rather get Biden out now, get her in, and then the worst case scenario, we only have to deal with 7 years of Kamala.
Here's the thing. No. Here's the thing. She was the one who was put in charge of the border.
Yeah, no, she has got her own impeachable
and here's the thing.
offenses
on top of that,
directly.
It's not Pelosi who comes in as VP. It's whoever Kamala appoints to be approved of by the Senate. So it could easily be that we just don't have a VP for the rest of the Biden term, and then Kamala doesn't get voted in because she sucked as a president for 2 years.
Oh, yeah, no. People hated her more than they hated Biden. I'm legitimately kind of surprised as I think back on it.
I would very much like, and as much as I'm not a fan of Kamala there, I'm really not, right? A, I don't think Biden can do the job. B, I think that he's doing things that are treasonous. And C...
And you're not going to see a impeachment until 2023. You're going to need a Republican Congress for that.
That may be true. But I do think that he should be. And when that does happen, and she gets put in power, the left is going to lose their whole little mirage. The blue mirage that we had to deal with on election night goes away because the Biden the Biden pacifier that they've been sucking on, or the Obama era pacifier they've been sucking on, goes away.
Yeah, it gets
And
replaced with
they're going to
Hanoi
basically
Harris.
have to deal with. Right. Like, they're going to all of a sudden have to deal with the fact that who and what
Nice.
she is.
I
And that's going to be a solid solution.
All right. I got to go. I wanted to stick it out for that little bit because I wanted to hear what you had to say. But I do got to go.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Take it easy. We'll
I'll
talk to you.
see you guys.
I'll talk to you soon, but everybody else will hear from you soon enough.
All right. Catch you guys later.
Later, man.
Talk to you later. Now we can talk shit about Craig.
I suppose we can. But anyway, the numbers on that are coming in at, as said, with cooked numbers out of California, with bad sourcing, 53% support no recall, 47% support yes recall.
I mean, that would be within the margin of error.
Yeah, and that's within an actual legitimate margin of error. And if we throw on top of the fact, on top of that, the fact that we know these numbers are cooked, I mean, that's fucking dire. Absolutely.
Well, you also gotta the key thing that you gotta turn around and do is not necessarily focus on whether the numbers are cooked or not, but keep in mind that people are much more significantly motivated by negative emotions, and at the end of the day, the people who are saying that we shouldn't recall aren't going to be powered as much by the desire to remove Newsom as those who are powered by the desire to get him out.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people who have no desire to vote for whoever. It's just, I want this fucker gone. I don't care who gets in, as long as it is not him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. That's all it takes. Like, if there's a California person out there that's catching this, and you've got time, man, get in touch. And get in touch with your all the people you know locally and just say, hey, it's time to end this. It doesn't matter who you write in. You can write in Caitlyn Jenner. You can write in Larry Elder. You can write in Arnold Schwarzenegger to get him come back. Whoever, whatever.
To all my friends
you
in
do,
California,
vote yes on recall.
Imagine pitching to whoever you want. Ask them whether they want to wear masks over the next year. Ask them whether they want to, have to get boosters every 5 months, because that will be required in California.
While
stays in,
the ruling class is not required to do these things as well.
Right, and it won't be required if somebody else goes in. You want to save your mental health and your kids' mental health. Vote them out.
Yeah, you got a 5-finger opportunity here, Cali bros. You better grab on and hold tight. So, yeah, I guess we've ended with some decent news and some promising news. There's Candace Owens getting fucked around, but she'll probably be able to fuck them back around. So we'll keep our eye on that and see if there's anything more to come of it as things go, because there's a real good case there. Oh, the other one, which, if for nothing else, it's good for trolling. The Cowboy Caliphate. Good luck, Texas. Shit's going to get interesting. Was there anything else you were wanting to go over?
Cowboy Caliphate?
You better believe it, son. Boy, howdy. I tell you what.
No, I'm actually, I'm pretty good. Right. Honestly, most of my stuff has been spent. Yeah, my most recent time has been spent on digging further and deeper and preparing for the inevitable fight on vaccine mandates, because I am an employee of the government, and I literally did start sitting there and pushing back on the executive management to start providing specific answers instead of your standard canned sauce bullshit. So it does appear that they are not taking action until such time as the government actually does something. And right now there's a lot of crosstalk with the CDC and the FDA over what should or should not be approved. So,
and remember,
I've got my own.
There are always religious exemptions.
Well, that's the fun part, right?
Oh,
At the end of the day, if they don't allow for religious exemptions and you decide to do something like, say, only test those of us who are unvaccinated and we happen to have religious exemptions. I'm a Branch Stavonian. And I'm trying to convince other people to join Branch Stavonianism. But in the event that you only have that, then sitting there and testing only the people who are vaccinated is or aren't vaccinated will likely create a situation where you're arguing for discrimination.
Oh,
It's gonna
yeah.
be fun.
I mean, we can't have this sort of medical apartheid, can we?
We cannot. Nope.
Not in a modern society.
Diversity and inclusion are my strength. I
Absolutely.
can wield that hammer just as much as anybody else does.
I will say it is absolutely ironic to see some of these people who push so hard for single payer and Medicare for all say, well, fuck these people. They don't deserve health care. It's like, oh,
Yep.
now
Yep.
you get it. Now
Well,
they get it.
at the end of the day, if you turned around and you said, okay, we're going to turn around and I've seen this whole thing, and we're going to sign a waiver that says, okay, if the hospital is full and I come in with COVID, I have signed away my thing saying you can send me home in favor of cancer patients. I'm okay with signing that document, right? As long as I get as much ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and zinc as I want, right?
And maybe a little dash of Regeneron, just like they gave to Joe Rogan. Maybe the Joe Rogan cocktail seemed to work really well for him. It was what his doctors advised and worked great.
Oh my God. I'm looking at like things to watch. There is something on Hulu called The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then Bigfoot.
That
And you're
sounds
like,
like it might
this,
not be terrible, or might be all the right kinds of
that
terrible.
may be interesting.
Well, sir, I think you've found your way to settle in for the evening.
I very well may have. I've got a few other things I'm kind of looking at. Most likely it's just going to be Archer and then going to bed.
Fair.
But I'm liking some of these. Like, there's some of these old movies that I haven't seen in a little bit. I watched all of MODOK. That was interesting.
Huh.
Yeah,
Not
there's
sure
what
if
is
I'm
it?
familiar.
So
Although it sounds
MODOK,
familiar.
it's a Hulu thing, but it's basically like Robot Chicken, with Marvel themes. Oh, it's kind of interesting.
Oh, that's a Marvel character. Okay,
Yeah,
that's why it sounds familiar.
yeah.
Okay.
Uh, I'm seeing some insurance. My Scientology movie. Yeah, I don't want to watch that. Nobody wants to watch that.
Yeah,
Nobody
who
fucking
cares about
cares.
Scientology other than Tom Cruise? And
Hunt for the Skinwalker.
that sounds pretty good. Sounds like something I would do
That
in my
could be.
spare time at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Did you see the Skinwalker Ranch thing?
Nope. I am familiar with the place though.
So they did like
Somebody did like a documentary or something though. I have heard about it, but I haven't seen anything
yeah,
on it.
yeah. So it's like a it's just like an Ancient Aliens or whatever, and they're just investigating this one place. And I'm sure that whoever bought the ranch bought it specifically with the intention of pumping out as much TV shows as they can into it.
I don't know.
And
It's been that I've heard about the place for years actually.
it has it's been like it floats around in the circles of whatever, but that's neither here nor there. The fun part is that you're used to seeing ghost hunters go run around with uncalibrated equipment taking measurements of things that they don't understand. And this is
True.
that, but it's at like a millionfold. And it just, when you work as a nuclear engineer for a bit and they decide to start pulling out rad measurements, you're like, oh my God, what is wrong with you people?
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
That might be an interesting thing
But
to do. A live breakdown of when you've got some time. Just
which part?
bad science in television.
Oh my God.
Bad science that's supposed to be good.
Uh, there's there's very little science in television that's good,
Well, that's
and
true.
I'm not
I
just
mean,
saying
from the
that from
little
a
amount that I know, I
contrarian
just watched
perspective.
some of the fucking NCIS and all that was just horrible. But then that's why I don't watch television anymore because it's all garbage.
I mean, I think the thing that makes me like really sad is that it's very clear that some people never manage to make it out of high school science class.
Yeah, and a lot of those people are in positions of power and or authority.
Oh, they're writing stories and all this other stuff that doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying that like you can't like I love Rick and Morty, right? But Rick and Morty does not like it is absurd and it's intended to be absurd and it works because it's absurd. In the case of like I don't know, some of these other things that you see, they've got some sort of science technology that they're using and it's just not how it works. Nuclear stuff's pretty bad. Most chemical stuff, they don't really know how chemicals work.
Well, chemistry is
Acids are
magic.
in particular.
You put the thing into
Chemistry
the
is magic.
thing,
All
and
of
and then you
all
mix it up, and then there you go. Now you've got a thing that's gonna make a whole city block go kablooey.
all of
All it takes
ooh,
is a
uh,
montage, man. All it takes is a montage.
they have the new Animaniacs on Hulu. That's amazing.
I've heard some not amazing things.
Huh.
Yeah, where the
No?
original Animaniacs just made fun of things, apparently they've gone to the next level with this one. If I'm wrong, feel
Really?
free to let me know, but apparently they've made this one a little bit more personal. Just like everybody is doing with everything now. It's like, hey, if you're this part of our fan base, you can fuck right off. We don't give a fuck about you. Hope you die. So,
Hmm.
do feel free to watch and let me know if I'm wrong, but I've heard that there's at least a portion of that in there.
Huh. Interesting.
Because there has to be.
Well, I will see what there is here. There's a lot of hot wives. That's interesting.
Oh, great. Well, anyway, I think
Uh,
we've pretty much wrapped up about everything we need to cover on here. So,
we we
since
we
uh,
have, yes.
since unfortunately Craig is gone, I'll have to go ahead and give you his details. Craig Bob 99, pretty much everywhere. Feel free to look him up, send any questions or concerns or follows, or call him wrong at science if you like, and see how far that gets you. You can find Steve here at Ratman720. Good luck. You probably just won't get a reply. Am I wrong?
Hey, listen. Someone added me from the show on Twitter. That did happen in the last week. I was like, who the fuck is this asshole who's adding me to their favorites? And then I found out that they liked our show. So, I
Oh,
mean, it does happen.
well,
I do see your comments to me.
okay. Well, color me
I
correct.
will respond,
Someday.
but I just won't really reliably respond. And,
Okay, well, that's fair.
yeah.
All right, well, yeah, you can find
Social media is dangerous.
true. Kind of cancerous as well.
It is indeed cancerous. Yeah.
So, for
So,
what it's worth, you can find Steve here at Ratman720 on Twitter. You anywhere else?
I think I got mines.
Okay, yeah. I'm on mines. So is
YouTube,
Craig as well.
YouTube, mines, Twitter. You can probably go sit there and hunt for me on Facebook, but I don't even know my logins to that one anymore.
Yeah, and you won't find me there. If you do, let me know because it's not me. And I'm Evan, as always. You can find me at that fake guy Dan on everything again except Facebook. I'm on like all the alt social media, I think. And
I think I am too, but I don't have those apps installed.
yeah, and I kind of just I check everything every so often, but I'm only like actively active on Twitter and Minds, kind of. And of course, there's the Discord. So if you want an invite, message. You can message any of us, but if you message me, I'm very active on there and on online just in general. So I can get you added if you want to get involved in discussions with the show ideas, whatever. And you don't want to send them through shitty social media. You can send it through less shitty social media. And anyway, been a pleasure. I'll be seeing you again soon. Who knows what sort of awful clusterfucks are going to happen between now and then. We'll get to see how the wrap-up from Ida goes. That's going to be fun, to say the least.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'll probably end up heading down there to help out.
Yeah. Oh, and
no reason.
Yeah,
no
dude,
reason
keep me informed on top of that too.
between...
Like if there's real charities that are going to be doing real shit, like helping people on the ground, like what you're going to be doing, let me know so I can get some of that out too. Like not some of these bullshit. Fucking, I'm going to take 30% and then give some to people so they can buy supplies at Home Depot. Like somebody that's going to,
I think.
But then you wouldn't direct me to some shit like that anyway.
No. I mean, there are certain things that I do fully support. Habitat for Humanity, I really like. I also like the Heifer Project International.
Yeah, Habitat for Humanity is good. Like if you've got one in your city, they're generally a good organization, and their actual mission statement and mission creep and everything of what they do only really benefits people. So them just expanding their operations and getting bigger is actually only a greater good.
Well, and the other thing too is they also finance their operations through low-cost building material stores that they have available for people. So you can actually get furniture and building supplies and various other stuff that they have left over, right? So
and if you have a Habitat Restore, you can make donations of home building supplies and home supplies, furniture, air conditioners, refrigerators, appliances, that sort of thing. And you can make that same sort of donation you would at a place like a Goodwill, and instead of a Goodwill just kind of staying in their own ecosystem, this is actually going into your own local ecosystem and helping out a lot of people. So look that up. Habitat's a good organization, kind of all around. They're one of those charities out there that's actually just not really fucking around, and even if they do fuck around, it's only individuals, so it's not like an institutional rot thing.
Realistically, I am not a fan of charities that purportedly go in and give people things, right? I don't mind charities that help people build something, right? If you're building a house, or you're providing livestock or something like that allows someone to be self-sustaining on their own, I'm fully in support of that. But any charity that just does some sort of short-term consumable, anytime that happens, all you're doing is setting yourself up to be in perpetual payments to it.
Oh yeah, I mean, rare is the individual that's able to take care of something that's just dropped in their lap like that. Look at lottery winners, and you see a lot of sad stories.
Yep, yes you do.
And well,
oh yeah, I need to go pull a lottery ticket. There's a big drawing coming up, right?
Friday? I have no idea.
Sunday, something like that. That's good. I usually throw $20 once it hits $500,000.
Yeah, well,
that's my limit.
Good luck.
Yeah, or $500 million, not million. Oh, $500,000, that would be worthless.
Oh yeah, $20 for $500,000. That's not a fair trade at all.
Yep.
I mean, considering they'd probably take half of it anyway, considering where you live, and then another half on receipt.
Yeah. It's like 43%, and I would take the money up front because, frankly, when you start talking about the installments, as good as those may be, I am sure that I could put it into a dividend-bearing account and get more money out of it than.
I mean, you could drop it all in Nokia and guarantee yourself that that's going to be worth a lot more as soon as they start installing the cell towers on the moon. Oh,
could be.
Last bit of the day. Nokia doing great. Keep an eye on it because it's looking like it's a good hedge against inflation. I'm not an investment guy, not a doctor, but it looks good. So maybe keep your eyes on it if you're looking at something for a long-term investment. And that seems like a pretty good place to end it. a nice piece of advice for folks.
Indeed.
So look me up at that fake guy Dan. Look him up at Ratman720, and look Craig up at CraigBob99. And if you got any questions or anything, hit us up. Be good, be safe, and we'll talk to you again soon.